stream is up in all of the locations. Hello, YouTube. youtube.com/JupiterBroadcasting/live. If you would like the lowest latency video stream, at the moment, this changes every now and then, but right now, that title goes to Twitch, twitch.tv/JupiterBroadcasting, where you can get the lowest latency video stream. If you would like the lowest latency audio stream, jblive.fm. And of course, it all comes together at jblive.tv, where we've got one of the source streams embedded and the chat room. Boom! Right there. But maybe you like to put that chat in your own client. I understand. I get you. irc.geekshed.net #, Jupiter Broadcasting. That's where you can get the chat room. Now, a little bit of business to attend to. We had somebody, I'm not going to name names, we had somebody get cute with their mumble name, put a few crazy characters in there, and our SQLite database apparently has taken a dump as a result. So while the box is up, the SQL database behind the Mumble server is down. So, our dedicated volunteer Mumble admins are looking into it right now, seeing if they can't get it back up and going. It just happened a little bit ago, so we'll see. We are, in the meantime, we're going to work on maybe a backup. We're looking for suggestions in the IRC room, something great that we could link to that has good audio quality and low latency. That's where Mumble really excels. Much beyond most, if not all, WebRTC applications. Where Mumble really excels is just really fantastic latency if you get the server placement just right.
So fast!
Hey, Wes.
Well, hello!
So now, what's the latest out there?
Well, Manjaro boots up just great.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't let it finish loading because it's booting off a slow SD card.
But verifies...
Saw the bootloader.
Right. That's a good thing.
And we did have to switch the HDMI.
Okay. So now, it'd be worth maybe trying our best bet ARM image for Fedora 32 with the right HDMI and then seeing if that...
That's what I'm going to do.
Thank you, sir. That'd be great.
Figured I'll go with Workstation. That sounds like it might give some visual stuff, right?
Might as well. I'd be curious. I mean, we're going to have to, take... It's still the SD card and all that jazz, but... Oh, shit! Sorry.
Hey, we're back!
Mobile server's up. I didn't actually think it was going to happen. There we go. Mumble server's coming back up now. So if you're having... Hey, Levi! Hey, buddy, you want to do a show with us?
Everybody de-scramble. I suspect Levi may have fixed it because he walked in right when it came up.
Yeah, seriously. He is so good at that stuff. Levi, the IT dog. Everybody always says that.
We let him manage all of our DigitalOcean stuff. He's in charge. The tricky part is like the fingerprint scanners don't work. You got to get a custom dog paw scanner, and that's expensive.
Man, I could just jam on this song for 40 minutes straight. Tell you what.
We just have this pre-show groove. How long it goes? Nobody.
Ugh. Ba 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 ba. Yeah, I'm starting to learn its grooves and its valleys. Its dips and its hips.
You're one with it.
I would like that both. I want to stand, but this is a pain in the ass to stand. What I need to do is I can't get this out of this mount.
I hate that, yep.
And then really just mount this right here. How do I want to do that?
Try it.
I wonder if I could do that before the show. So what do you think do you think I would need... I already tried, I grabbed this with a pair of pliers.
Oh.
And because I've gouged it up trying to do this.
So it just won't get off the EV part.
I wonder if I take this out, would it... No. Does this loosen this? No. Yeah.
So it's just this bit that won't.
Yeah, it's so in there, and I can't seem to get... Hey, there he is. I can't get this tight enough. This just always gives right here. I can't get that tight enough.
Oh, right. Okay.
So there's a break right now in Red Hat Virtual Summit, so I just decided to show up.
Awesome. I hope people make it. I know that there's going to be a lot of people are going to be going into that. I just want to get it out of this mount, Wes. Ah! If I could just get it out of this mount, then I could mount this to this, and I'd be, rocking. So I mean.
Yeah, the player approach does seem good.
All right, I'm gonna go get some players. I'll try it again. I just tried it though, but I'm gonna try it again because I'm motivated now.
Right? With feeling.
Sounds like something's about to be destroyed.
So how's everyone feeling?
Typically, I just use my fingers.
Wow.
How are you doing, Neil? You enjoying your summit?
Geez, I don't know if I can handle being at the computer screen for so long at this point.
Oh shit! See, I just
I've been trying to not sit at the computer screen literally for 9 hours
I
straight.
started to let go.
But that certainly hasn't worked out yesterday and today.
I was just gonna put it back. There we go. I got it. All right.
Last minute studio surgery.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit because I'm gonna be manhandling this microphone.
Oh yeah, freedom.
Hi, Levi.
With that mumble issue, it just seems like it's a natural day to try to mix up as much as possible right before the show.
A lot of studios have a studio. I used to have a studio. Like,
Just sort of ambient.
back then.
If it's not on fire,
Right.
you're not trying hard enough.
I'm pretty sure that one was my fault. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. That one was me.
Mumble's just not capable of handling complicated names.
Yeah, you throw in an emoji and your working from home comment on your user profile and
Which
it
is a
just
shame, 'cause
dies.
I want more emojis up in there. I'm like, what about when Wimpy stops by? He's always got emojis everywhere.
All right.
Where's that page that gives people info about the Mumble stuff?
Like where to join Mumble and stuff.
Yeah.
I ended up having to look for like 10 minutes, so I could probably find it.
Yeah,
I want to give it to some other people so that they can join too, but I can't find the info.
I just need to sift through about 200 tabs real quick.
Oh boy.
That's not bad.
Upside down's pretty cool, Wes. I've never done upside down. It's so exciting.
It depends, I guess, how you got when you got your show notes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, because we're gonna have.
I just threw it in the IRC.
Oh, you beat me.
JupiterBroadcasting.org. I forgot about that.
That's right. .org.
Yeah, for the charity arm of JB,
The charity arm. Chris, you're so funny.
which is my bank account. Usually, I just donate constantly. Even still, I pay for a lot of stuff. All right.
Yeah, if you're lucky after the show, he just gives his credit card number out.
Hey, I'll take Chris's credit card. He can donate to me then.
I think the X factor in this setup is going to be the pop shield. Now that I think about it.
Right.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Minimac.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Everything's in order right now. So Mitri told me he just rebooted the server, in fact. So started the service and it went back. So
Very good.
Very good. I don't know what happens because just prior to there were people in it talking, so it worked, and all of a sudden,
Oh, really?
the server was gone.
Well, somebody in the chat room was saying they may have accidentally created a user ID with really strange characters. Right
Yeah, I posted that. I posted that on Telegram, and Mitri looked the logs and said, well, he wasn't really fixing it. He looked at it and then tried to restart the service, and he came back.
Oh, okay.
So it was Ticario. I told him to do 100 push-ups and no dinner tonight, so I don't know if he will do it, but...
I know, man, I had trouble with Microsoft Teams this morning.
Uh-oh.
It was just, for whatever reason,
no.
it suddenly started kicking me to an image of a page saying, Teams for Linux is still under development. And when you click this link for joining some sort of list, it kicked you to what looked like a GitHub thread with a status of completed.
Oh, I hope it's under
Wait, why is
development.
it taking you to GitHub? That seems remarkably unprofessional.
Owned by Microsoft?
Okay, so
That doesn't make it more professional. That makes it less.
this is getting a little weird now. My new setup's a little weird. I think it's too heavy. Once I put the old pop shield on there, I exceeded the weight limit of my arm. Uh-oh.
So, Chris,
I got arm
finally
sag.
bought a pop shield. I don't know how to put it on.
What? No, you gotta put it on. It doesn't work if you don't put it on.
I said I don't know how.
Well, it depends on what kind it is.
You're a smart guy.
Chris, you know better than that. I'm an idiot.
Well, I just have this little foam little Frenchman, and that's working okay, I think.
Is it bad that I had to Google what a pop shield is?
No. No, I mean, it's one
Fancy
of
noise productions.
it's one of those things you only
you
really
don't
care
know
about
until
when
you need one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's this blue pop filter thing, but it provides me no instructions of how to mount this onto my microphone.
Typical. I tell you. Why, they just figure, it's so beautifully designed, you'll figure it out. That's what Blue figures. Man, I feel like my pop shield makes a pretty significant volume difference. This is Chris without the pop shield. This is Chris with the pop shield. I guess it's not that bad.
I can't really tell much of a difference
I
over
literally
here.
do not know how this is supposed to work. It's just this little thing with the metal bendy cord thing, and then it's just, I don't know, what it's supposed to clamp onto or anything.
Can I just use duct tape?
Moving
Is there like
this,
a screw or something?
I'm moving my pop shield mount up the arm a little bit to see if that helps with weight distribution. Oh, but now it scrapes on the mic.
Is that with the MXL, Chris?
Yeah.
And you're exceeding the weight limit with the MXL
And-
on a shock mount and a pop shield?
Maybe I could tighten this thing down a little bit more. But yeah, apparently. Well,
That
and
seems,
the spider, the shock mount. Yeah, Levi, I'm trying to podcast over here.
Oh, Levi.
He's over
Tell him
there.
I said hey.
He's over there playing with squeaky toys.
I missed that, Levi.
Yeah, I know. He misses everybody. He would like some humans to come visit.
And here I
Wes
thought
isn't
that
bad,
squeaky
but-
noise was your microphone.
I'm not fully human.
All right, I'm being super janky, and I just put this in front of the microphone, and it looks awful, but let's see if this works. How do I sound?
So far, so good.
Say something with some peas in it, though.
Yeah. Like you're popping popcorn. Levi.
Chris, it sounds like you need the tool. I was looking at this last week. I threw a note in the chat about the NVIDIA RTX Voice. Has anybody else looked at this thing? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is.
Incidentally, you don't need an RTX card to use it.
Oh, really?
That's what's cool. Yeah,
that's
you can
cool.
hack the installer. It's just you take out the constraints section in one of the files, and you can install it on anything all the way back to like a 7 series.
NVIDIA.
Yeah, it does still have to be NVIDIA, though, right?
Yeah, it does.
And
But there is an open source
non-RTX is a lot
project.
slower, I think.
Not bad. It's like 2% GPU usage on my 1050 Ti Max Q.
Yeah, but that's a
the-
1050 Ti.
Yeah. The,
Yeah, but it's still a Max Q. It's a notebook.
yeah, it's basically the nerfed version, but the open source variant is CPU powered, and it seems to work okay, not to the same extent. But I threw a link for that in the chat too, if anybody wants to look at it quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, do they even have an installer for Linux?
RTX? No, but that would be cool. We should all harass NVIDIA about it.
I mean, it's NVIDIA.
I'm sure they'll get right on it, yeah.
Alright, so what am I don't know. This is
Why?
Ow! What the hell?
So which one were you?
That was in my foot. I'm getting dropped by tools. So let's see here. I think I gotta flip the. See, I was trying to do is take all of the bulk and put it up here, so it wasn't down by my hands. That's what I was trying to do. But maybe I should use a different pop shield. Maybe that's my problem.
What's up, fellers?
Hey, Chase.
Hey!
Hello.
Fellers and fillets, I should say.
Hello.
Oh, look, Matt DM is here. We should make sure he gets in here.
Part of it is just an unwieldy. Funny.
So you guys gonna do any coverage on how Stadia just announced PUBG today?
Oh boy.
Probably
Are you guys
not.
going to do any coverage on the Fedora ThinkPads? That sounds amazing.
That I want to hear.
I saw that and I was
100%.
instantly like, this is going to be on love.
Just give me one of those with a Ryzen 4000 series, and I'm in.
I mean, I already have a Fedora ThinkPad.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's about voting with your wallet.
I did when I bought my ThinkPad and stuck Fedora on it.
Yeah, but you're
don't think
voting
that's
by
how that
buying one that
works.
already has Fedora. That's the point. Voting with your wallet.
Man, what are you talking about? They're not gonna.
Yes, they
getting
are.
paid.
If everybody in the world bought a Fedora ThinkPad, do you think that they would sell more Fedora ThinkPads?
I sure hope so. That's a lot of
Maybe.
people.
I mean, you.
Yeah, I mean,
the
by-
question is, how many Fedora ThinkPads do you get? Because knowing Lenovo, it will take at least 2 years or so till they get production ready, and then they will
Oh.
be sold out immediately.
All right, that's
Oh,
That's-
I
that's-
sure hope
there's a lot of
not,
truth in
considering I
there.
need a laptop now.
I mean, just because they announced it and it's like listed doesn't mean it's available.
Right. In the meantime, you can buy yourself a System 76 laptop. You can buy yourself a
No.
Dell XPS.
Maybe.
A
Buy yourself.
MacBook Pro.
Yeah. I
No.
mean,
Or you can
probably
just
not
get a
your
used
daily
laptop
driver
and put
machine.
anything on it, because that would
Precisely.
be the environmental friendly way to go.
I have like 6 used laptops. I just need one that's actually like powerful.
Same.
I'm really interested to see what System 76 does with their own laptop.
I was thinking about the Lemur Pro being their own designed laptop, but it seems to be a Clevo nonetheless.
It's still
not,
Clevo.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ready for their production of their own laptops just yet. I know they're working on it.
I am personally really excited for their homebrew keyboards. That sounds
Yep.
really cool.
I know that they're working on the laptops. I'm sure that they're working through design iterations and all that stuff right now. If it's anything like whenever I visited System 76, they had like 3D printed and Lexan mock-ups of the original Thalio, and so I'm sure that they're probably somewhere in that phase.
My first reaction when I heard about the keyboard was like somebody's like, I'm making their own keyboard, and then another engineer said, wow, that's actually really good. And then I thought, maybe we can make something out of this.
Gamma, you sound good other than you have some scratchy audio. A little scratchy.
Scratches are good for the soul, apparently.
You have a beard in your audio.
I was gonna go with the potato, but beards are good too.
Isn't today the day where Chris is going to talk about his Lemur?
I do have it, but I'll probably talk about it next to give it more airtime. I'll probably talk about it next week.
If
But
there's still time,
if you got any
there's still
questions,
time- yeah, I'm really interested in the build quality because it's still a Clevo, but it seems to be a higher quality Clevo.
I'd say it's probably the highest quality I've ever held.
And I'm interested in how does it compare to like Dell XPS or like X1 Carbon or X390 or something.
Well, for the XPS 13, I'd say it has a slightly larger footprint, but it is lighter in overall weight, and screen size is slightly bigger to me. The keyboard's about on the same.
The build quality, like I don't know what's called in English, like the space between the parts.
Yeah, no, I like the gaps and the.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's so thin and tight that there's not really any spot for gaps. Like, it's thinner than my ThinkPad. I'd say it feels probably better built than my ThinkPad.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
It's definitely a little flimsier than an XPS 13.
Yeah,
but it is also lighter. I mean, it's incredibly light.
Yeah,
How does the keyboard compare to the ThinkPads? You guys are
I
rocking?
think it's not quite ThinkPad, but it's better than a MacBook, and it's
better than the XPS.
It's about the XPSs. Like, the XPSs probably had been the best keyboard I'd ever used on a laptop that thin, and I would say this is as good.
Is it like chiclet style or?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, God, I usually hate those.
Yeah. That's one of the things I think I have finger happiness when I use a ThinkPad.
And I forget that you're not using a keyboard.
Yeah, I struggle on the MacBook. I struggle to use the original Touch Bar chiclet butterfly keyboard.
God, the Mac keyboard.
You should try the new keyboard.
Hey, Wimpy.
I wouldn't mind trying the new one.
Hello.
Hello, Wimpy!
I've heard that they're
It's been
magical.
a long time since I've heard from you. Nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, I find myself surprisingly busy these days.
What are you up to?
You might be crackling just a hair, Wimpy. You might
No
be a tad
kidding.
hot on the audio. Slight crackle on your audio.
How's that?
Perfect.
That's no longer clipping here, or a little bit, maybe a bit more.
Okay. I could take a bit more. Hello, Jill.
Okay, there we go.
That sounds great, Wimpy.
Okay.
What up, Jill?
How's about that? How's
Yeah.
that doing?
I think it's
good,
You
man.
sound great.
Very good.
Hello, Jerone. How do you say that one? Jerone? Jerone, right? I bet. I'm great with names.
That's how you built this whole thing.
So I meant to talk to you about how much. So this Arch server update, we did the LTS already.
Well, so we also cut most of that. So.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. We don't have to do any of it, really, if we don't want to.
We could punt it.
I just put it in there because we talked about it, putting it there last
Well,
week.
actually,
So it was
I
a
liked it.
holdover.
I liked it, but now I'm thinking maybe we'll punt it and then we'll do it next week.
Punting in progress.
Which will just mean there's even more to do, but. Don't arch like us, kids.
That was a pretty creepy,
What
like
the
cartoon
hell?
villain laugh, dude.
That was my cartoon villain, yeah.
It
You
sounded
scared
good.
me.
You nailed it.
You know, sometimes it's okay to be a villain.
Yeah, sometimes I'm the bad
Sometimes
guy
it is.
you need.
That's why you're running Arch.
Yeah.
Heyo.
Did you hear there was a news story about micro, hang on, let me go find it.
Do. Well, the stars are aligning.
Oh, are they?
So, with that removed, that leaves us with the pre-show hole.
Pre-show.
Hey Chris, did you see the news story about unikernels?
I don't know if I did. Doesn't sound like it.
So, let's see. It's like the diagram they show is like a VM is an app, an OS, a kernel, all on top of a hypervisor.
Okay, yeah.
A container is like you can have multiple containers on top of an OS and then a kernel. And then a unikernel is where on top of your hypervisor you have just one app that is connected to a specialized kernel. Like there's only one app for the kernel that lowers the attack vector significantly, and since it is just the kernel, it's not a full OS, it's just a specialized kernel, then you don't have trouble with much slowness and you can run a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, trick is you got to build that all in, pick the, have stuff that lets you link
Hey,
from
Carl.
everything and build it all in one thing. You lose all the advantages of having a nice little
Carl, you made
troubleshooting
it.
OS.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Carl. How's your
Hey,
virtual
Carl.
summiting going?
Crazy busy.
I
Lots of
bet.
streams of input.
Oh boy, your puns.
I'm imagining like an old-fashioned switchboard, like plugging in things from different areas.
Yeah, I'm staffing the booth right now, as it were.
There's a staffing?
Yeah.
There's a booth?
Yeah, well, virtual booths. It's true.
Can Chris get another one of those jackets?
Now all we have to do is get Matt DM in, because he's just sitting there and staging.
I think Minimec's working out the old mic issues.
Minimec's the best.
Yeah, I guess Matt doesn't do this very often, so.
Oh yeah, see now I can pull the mic way back here and lean back to do. Oh, this is great.
You look so cozy.
I am chill right now. I gotta say, this is working.
I feel like I made a mistake with this pop filter.
No, you're doing it right. They just you should see mine. It's ridiculous right now.
They get in the way, but they also make you sound good.
Here, I'll see if I can't get a picture of mine right now. It's pretty.
Hey Wes,
Yes.
J-Bot is dead.
Yeah, I'm bouncing it right now. It will be back in just a moment.
We had such a wave of people so early when Mumble came back on. I think it was like the anticipation of it being off. When it came back on, it was just an explosion of people.
Everyone's sitting there checking it. Well, it's down. Let me try it.
I mean,
how many people are in the Mumble right now?
I was just kind of bored in between sessions. I was like, okay, I just finished eating a snack or two. I got a drink. I was like, you know what? I know that Linux Unplugged is starting in a half hour. Why don't I just go ahead and jump in? And then no Mumble server.
You jumped in?
Yep, I jumped in. I jumped and then crumpled.
Yikes, that doesn't sound good.
Jump well.
Neil's resilient.
Sounds like
Neil's
something you do when you're drunk.
Oh,
I thought it was something Trump does.
Oh God, I just.
This went the wrong direction really quickly.
That's why I'm pivoting straight back to I am very happy today's Fedora 32 release day.
I thought you were going to say I am very drunk then after that flummoxing you just did.
That
over
would be
your words.
great.
I am that too. I'm also very hot at this house. Really, it really shouldn't be so hot, but it is.
That's just the alcohol, bro.
No, okay.
The AC's the same.
Okay.
Here, I thought you were saying that you were high.
You guys ever watch?
No.
You guys ever watching TV and like the characters you're watching on TV are like having a glass of whiskey or something, and then you're sitting there watching that and you're going, I want a glass of whiskey now.
I have.
That's what you guys are doing to me right now.
I never have that problem because I always have a glass of whiskey nearby.
I mean, I totally believe that, Wimpy.
Although not right now, I have now hit a critical part of lockdown in that all of the drink in the house that I drink has been exhausted.
Yep.
I can't imagine where it's all gone.
No.
And my wife is sitting there waving around her bottles of wine and all the rest of it.
Jealous.
Yeah.
There you go. Neil, I just tweeted a picture of my mic setup for today.
Man, you guys are making me wanting to go get a cider, but I gotta edit this thing.
Yeah, that's the.
You got time,
That's the problem for us is it's middle of the day over here.
See,
Right.
your pop filter actually makes more sense. Mine is just kind of like wrapping it like a snake, and I'm not sure it's entirely
Technically.
stay.
Although I don't think I'm supposed to use this one upside down.
That's they don't recommend it.
Yeah.
It's got to be better than nothing.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's exactly.
I have no idea how to do this. They gave me.
Hey, Matt. Is Matt in here?
Are you on the
See,
990 today, Chris?
Yes, sir. That's yeah, sure.
Cool.
It is the 990 back on my original
OG mic.
my Linux Action Day mic. The Days of Linux Action Show.
You're on the 992, right, Drew?
I am.
Twinsies.
Except mine's
Hey,
the
so
Coral
Chris,
version.
do you remember when I was complaining on
version.
Sunday about working on vBulletin?
Yeah.
So we literally yesterday.
Did you commit a crime and was this your punishment?
Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like it was, but I didn't do a crime. I was trying to be helpful, and I wound up spending 4 days trying to figure out how to make vBulletin work with OpenID.
No. 4 days on the
I'm sad that I
vBulletin.
missed Sunday.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, like when I was talking to you on Sunday, that was day 2.
Oof. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, well, at least it's done now. and now that thing kind of works. It's not completely right, but it's enough right that I don't want to touch it anymore.
Yeah, I understand you on that one. No kidding. Walk away,
color, Drew,
and then start running.
Yep, but we got the new infrastructure for the OpenSUSE account system based on the same stuff that we're working on in Fedora is actually up and running, although there is no account data yet because we still have to fill it with stuff. But we're working on porting all the.
Don't worry, there won't be much account data once it is up and running either. Oh,
man, Chris, you're mean. Throwing it. You're savage.
I've had too much caffeine and now I'm on fire.
Wow, you're just so rude.
Yeah, it's just because it's SUSE. Let's be honest.
Oh,
I just gotta poke you a little bit.
I mean, no, to be fair, I'm in the same boat when it comes to thinking about SUSE right now. This is turned into like a cacophony of disasters while trying to get everything up and running.
Weird. That's totally unexpected.
Uh-huh. Chris, I know you're grinning on the other side. You were a former SUSE admin. You know exactly what the hell I'm talking about.
I've seen things. I have. I have seen things, and I migrated off of it.
In the past, Chris, did you commit a crime, and was that your punishment?
Yes, I am. Maybe
more than one.
I think it was the sin of greed. I wanted a paycheck, and
I'm happy living in the land of Fedora now, most of the time, because touching some of that stuff in the old, working on Sleet 12 sucked. That's what it comes down to. I had to work in a realm where there wasn't even a working complete Python 3 stack.
Oh, we're just teasing Drifter about the SUSE stuff. If it works for you, that's great.
SUSE is mostly fine. I mean, it's not like they're actually completely incompetent or something like that.
It's just bizarre world of RPM macros. Everything's just a little different enough to throw you off.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
I've also admin Slackware systems, so it makes my brain hurt even more.
Yeah.
Because that legacy of Slackware shows up in the most random of places.
Yeah, there's that aspect of it too, and I feel like you get closer to that original metal than you do in most distros.
Right.
How much of it is still Slackware? Like, it's totally different, right?
Yeah.
It is now, but
except for where it's not.
Yeah. So the init scripts are still this weird hybrid of System 5 and BSDRC. There's kind of random legacy config structures that just are eerily reminiscent of Slackware rather than a Red Hat system. And while they use RPM and have adopted certain conventions from Red Hat systems, there are still parts that look kind of Debian or kind of Slackware. And it just makes my brain hurt when I have to try to remember which way I'm supposed to do something.
Come to Arch, we have WireGuard.
No. Plug.
Come to Ubuntu, we have WireGuard.
Yeah.
Come to Fedora, we have WireGuard.
Come to Linux, we have
Linux, we have WireGuard.
Wow, that didn't take people long to get WireGuard rolled out, did it? Jeez, that really did land fast. Who doesn't have WireGuard right now?
Everyone was champing at the bit for that.
That's what I was thinking.
I helped work on getting it into Fedora back in December, so it was already ready to go.
What distros at this point don't have it?
Debian?
SUSE?
Is Debian having it?
Debian.
No, not yet.
Debian.
Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, obviously, they will, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Right.
So at this point, it'd be RHEL, SLE, Debian, and Ubuntu pre-1604.
Does Tumbleweed?
Yes, Tumbleweed's got it.
Okay.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, we're backporting it to 1804.
Ah, good call.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
So sorry, pre-1804, not pre-1604. So 1604 and older would not have it.
That makes 1804 even handier.
It sure does.
Yeah, well, we realise that people are going to be using that for another 8 years, so it's kind of important that we put WireGuard in there, right?
Yeah, no. I'm chomping at the bits for the day when it shows up in CentOS and RHEL. I would want it there too.
Right.
And it's in Fedora, and that Fedora is what I run all of my personal stuff on, so I can switch over basically whenever, which I will definitely do it after spending 2 hours working on OpenVPN connections and 4.
That's all it takes.
It's so much simpler. Just the other day, I just have that WireGuard config. I set it up on an iOS device the other day, and I just can't believe how simple it is to do a WireGuard VPN from a Apple iOS device. That just melts my head. And it's integrated in at the networking stack level of iOS. It's not even like a hack. It's not like an application level thing. It's actually at the OS level.
No.
Yeah, because
Android.
there's a user space primitive that they're leveraging that Apple endorses for supporting WireGuard.
Here's how you build proper VPNs on our platform.
What a concept! Let me tell you, because as an end user, it's really nice because I get a little icon up by the clock that lets me know my VPN's established, which remains persistent across apps, and then I can just open up the web browser and get to any web application on the other end of that WireGuard connection in the regular old Safari browser.
And the only OS that doesn't have something like this is Windows. Windows is the one that it's actually a real pain to get these VPNs working. Like all the other things about Windows the other things about Windows networking are actually pretty nice. This is not one of them.
Like NetBEUI and Wins. Those are great.
Oh my god. Chris, you're giving me nightmares and flashbacks.
Don't you need a Windows name service?
No.
Winsoft.
Sure do.
No. I don't want my Windows Internet names domain services ever.
Just all you got to do is make sure that you set one of the Samba boxes as a higher number, so that way it's your default browser for your network, and then the NetBEUI over TCP/IP will work just fine in auto-discovering things. But if you have any trouble, all you have to do is set up a Win server, and then just add that to your DHCP options, so that way your Windows boxes get their Win server information, and then be sure you add the Win server to your smb.conf on all your Samba server.
Oh my god, Chris, you are giving me PTSD.
I know.
Stop it.
Oh, Microsoft networking. Microsoft and networking and I have a very tattered history because I started understanding the concept of networking at a time before Microsoft was embracing TCP/IP. And so I remember the other operating systems just going all in on IP and watching NetWare use IPX and Microsoft go with NetBEUI and thinking, will you guys just catch up already and just figure it out? And then when they finally did implement a TCP/IP stack in their operating systems, it was a crashy mess.
Right.
Which is why you had to have Trumpet.
What? Trumpet?
Trumpet wins.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were making a reference back to your Trump thing earlier.
No, fuck that.
Hey, Wimpy, I just wanted to give you a shout out, man, to you and the team for a solid release this past week.
Wait, save it for the show. Jeez, we're going to say it in the show.
Congratulations, Wimpy. 2004 looks like it turned out to be an okay release.
Matt, did you make it in? I see Matt.
Yes.
Hello, Matt.
I'm here.
Great to have you.
Hello.
Congratulations to you, too, on a new release.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. Well done, Fedora.
This is a great day.
Another fine release.
April is a good month for Linux users, huh? The end of April.
For real.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy about this. This is a really good release.
Yeah.
I think so. From my point of view, May is a good month because then we can relax for a little bit. But
fair enough.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like next week, I'm taking a week off work and I'm going to sleep.
Oh, good. That's great.
I need to do the same. I'm so exhausted.
You ready, Wes?
I think I might be.
Get your chair in the upright position, everybody. Please fasten your seatbelts.
I was going to do it on the floor.
There will be designated moments. When you hear the sound, you can move about your room. But until then, please remain seated unless you hear otherwise from your captain.
I can't leave my computer.
Nope. What are we missing? Oh, yeah, highlight check. I wanted to do a quick highlight check with you. I don't have anything in... Well, there's only one I have any highlights in. That's the ThinkPad one. So...
I see one in... Oh, no, that was a previous highlights. Ooh,
Yeah.
Trixie.
I know.
I crave ZFS.
So...
Mm-hmm. It ebbs and it's closed, but it's always there at the background. It's driving you slightly mad.
That is
when
one
the
thing
hell did
I
he
don't
say
crave.
he craves ZFS? When was that? Where's that clip from?
I don't know what... That is the most disturbing statement I've heard from him ever.
I crave ZFS.
It's so great.
Jesus, no!
It's so random.
It's for people who like to mess with computers.
That part I remember. I remember that statement.
Yeah.
I guess I'm weird because I use tempfs as my root file system, but yeah.
You're impressive.
Living on the edge.
Wes runs from RAM. Usually, the Wes Payne maneuver is to kexec into an OS that's completely running out of RAM, and then just run from that for like 3 days, and then forget, and then reboot your machine and lose everything.
Well, it's just a temporary OS, you know?
It's a fun thing. NixOS can boot with only /boot and /nix and nothing else.
That's so cool.
Because everything else comes from the configuration.
Right,
so
in the store.
running on TempFS and having a configuration that put your persistent things in place during boot time is totally doable and fully supported.
All right, we should.
You will laugh at me, but I have my my Firefox cache is also in TempFS because there is where I have the most write cycles, I guess. So
Actually, I use that.
To be fair, I do the same thing. It's
I
pretty
use
nice,
that.
yeah.
I use that profile sync daemon to do that.
Is TempFS.
That I think I've talked about it before on the show, but that profile sync daemon that just essentially supports all the various browsers available for Linux, and then syncs your profile from RAM to disk. So. That I
put the entire home in TempFS.
That's not a bad idea because the reason that I put my browser cache and profile in RAM was because it just reduces disk I/O, which made my desktop environment run better.
Right.
I mean, I've got a server grade OS, but apparently a little disk I/O. It seems to be, and I saw others discussing this, but it seems to be when it's a combination of disk I/O and a lot of calls to the GPU for painting the canvas at the same time that it would cause a certain type of stutter where my mouse would lag across the screen, my mouse would jump, it would go across the screen. And putting my putting my browser profile and cache in RAM, that issue has never really come up again. And if you think about it, modern web browsers are hitting the GPU all the time to render a web page. And then they're writing that stuff to disk. And so it seems like modern web browsers are actually the perfect sort of storm for that particular deficiency. Anyways, I don't know.
And who needs the cache anyway? Like
some of those things may now actually be fixed in GNOME 3.36, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Cheese, George, do you want to record too, just so you have a copy locally?
What?
George,
yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Good to go.
Okay. Then 3, 2, 1, record. All right. Good job,
Hello,
everybody.
Drew.
Hello, Drew. How do you do?
Yes, it is hammer time.
All right, and then let's count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Nice.
I crave ZFS.
And then
we need a Leo saying 4.
Yeah, we
He's
do.
kind of creepy.
We need, we need to get our silence. We love you, Leo. In 3, 2. All right.
That was unnecessary.
I don't know what you're
That was
talking
some
about.
silence.
I don't know what you're talking
Well, Drew
about.
really needs a marker at the end so he knows when the silence stops.
Otherwise, how would he know? There'd be no way to tell. So,
Stay a while and listen.
That must have been a fun voice sample to record.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hear about Clear Linux? They're pulling out of the desktop.
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
I'm a little disappointed. I was kind of interested to see where it could go, but I think between a combination of personnel changes and just sort of a realization of the realities of the market, they're focusing Clear Linux now on the server.
Hey, we'll still get those speedy packages.
That's true. I mean, it actually does make a lot more sense here for this type of system, something that's really designed around speed, something that Intel is really behind, and something that they're, I would assume, creating to try to sell more x86 processors long term. It would seem like the server market's probably a good bet. I don't know, though. It feels like,
It was going to be exciting to have this new contender in the desktop space.
You never like somebody saying, the desktop won't work for us. It's a real downer. I don't want to start with that, to tell you the truth. That's a bit of too much of a downer. Anybody else have any better news we could start with that isn't a downer?
ThinkPad story.
ThinkPads.
No, I want to save that for the show.
Okay.
You got to get the balance just right,
Then you can start with Clear Linux being depressingly bad, and then we
Void
talk about
Linux?
everything better. No.
Void Linux. No, dude, no.
No.
That's way more depressing.
Wes Payne, you got anything interesting?
Check in the back pocket.
Yeah, check your old back pocket there.
Well, the Red Hat Summit is online.
I think there was a news story somewhere about how Clear Linux performed better on AMD than it did on Intel.
Do you Carl and Neil, anybody else, if we just did like a quick 30-second thing on Red Hat Summit, you guys have anything you'd...
Sure, why not?
What about you, Carl?
Sounds like fun.
Anything you could think of you'd want
It's
to say about?
happening.
It's happening
It's
now.
happening. Yeah, all right. This is going to be one of those interesting episodes where we're going to have people bailing from the Mumble Room and then joining back during the show, because right now as we record, Red Hat Summit is happening. And Carl, you're manning a booth virtually right now?
Yes, sir.
How is that going?
Fedora and CentOS chat room /booth/ whatever you want to call it.
That's awesome. And are you getting decent attendance?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people in the chat. They've been they created On Demand created a Fedora badge, which is like a little gamification thing that they do in the Fedora community for attending, and you just show up in there and let them know what your Fedora account system username is, and they'll give you the badge.
Oh great, I was just about to ask, virtual booth, we need virtual swag.
Right, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh man,
I know. This is like a different kind of summit, isn't it, Neil?
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, I'm just glad it's happening at all, because like I've been kind of depressed with all the events that have been canceling throughout the season, and it's been nice to like at least get listen to see what people are doing and chat with folks in there. Hey, this is the first summit where I technically maybe gave a talk, so that's cool.
Yeah, and this year the con crowd would be real bad, and you're not going to get that, so that's a positive too.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look forward to not being basically bedridden for a month again like I was last year.
Yeah, I gave it a go. I logged in. I found it a little confusing, but kind of like you, I was just glad it was happening. And I thought to myself, well, I really appreciate the real Red Hat Summit, because when you go to the actual Red Hat Summit, you really get an appreciation for how dialed in Red Hat has that game. I've been to a lot of corporate events, and they really have their Summit game dialed in. The virtual version, it's a little rough. Hello, friends, and welcome into your weekly Linux Talk Show. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Hello, Mr. Payne. Quite the show we have for 351.
Packed.
Too much? We overdo it?
Just right.
We can't help ourselves because we have so much to cover with a brand new Fedora release, and of course, there's things to follow up on the new Ubuntu 20.04 release as well. We've had a little extra time with that, but as we said, we also gave the Fedora 32 release a full try.
Who could resist?
And I am happy to report that just after the show last week, actually during the show, they attempted to deliver my System 76 Lemur Pro, but they didn't really ring the doorbell. I think they dropped it off on the porch and were like, I don't want the COVID, and ran off and didn't even try. But the next day, I was camped out by the door. There's a window in the studio living room where I can see the entryway. And so there I was with my phone in hand watching. And they, sure enough, knock on the door, get the box. I open it up, tried it out for a little bit. And then the next day I had to put Fedora 32 on it. And I'll give you my impressions of what it's like. And then next week we'll have the review. But before we get into that, before we get into the review of Fedora 32, the follow-up of Ubuntu 20.04, the community news, I have to say, time-appropriate greetings to that Mumble Room. Hello, Virtual Lug.
Hello.
What's
Happy
up?
Linux Tuesday.
Hey.
Whenever you guys do that, I always watch it from a waveform perspective, and it's very impressive visually, I have to say. Hello, everybody. It's a great showing in there. I know some of you may have to come and go as the summit's going, but special hello to Matt DM. Matt from Fedora is back. Hello, Matthew. It's good to have you on the show.
Hi there. Good to be here.
Very glad you're here on Fedora release day. Your timing is perfect, sir. And Mr. Martin Wimpress, glad to have you back, sir. Hello. Happy release to you as well.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Well, so why don't we start with you, Wimpy? Because there was a tweet from your fingers on April 24th saying there's new features in the Ubuntu desktop that no one is talking about. And I thought, well, let's talk about them. And the one that I thought maybe we could start with, but I'd love to just go anywhere with you on this, but the one I'd like to start with is it appears that with 20.04, you can get a Ubuntu certified device right away. There's not this typical lag of months before OEM is certifying it. Is that true?
It's not quite that. So the way that it works now is that in the past, the only way you could get a certified device experience, which means the correct power endurance profiles, the correct firmware for auxiliary devices, the right drivers by default, all that sort of thing, was via the factory image that came preloaded. So what we've changed now is that when you do an install of the GA release of Ubuntu 20.04, it can identify if it's on a certified device and automatically pull in all of that stuff that would have been in the preloaded factory image into the standard install.
Oh.
So if you've got a certified device, maybe you bought it pre-installed with Windows and you want to dual boot Ubuntu alongside it, or maybe you've decided to make the switch to Ubuntu, you'll get the factory experience just from the GA ISO.
That is so cool. That is really cool. Now, there's a bunch of other things in here we should talk about, because one of the areas we didn't jump into was like the fingerprint stuff, and I'm curious if there's other areas you feel like need a little more attention too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are. I mean, the fingerprint stuff is interesting. That was another OEM request. And that's more around the support of new biometrics devices, which are mostly proprietary these days because they don't want people having sight of how the internals of those devices work. So we needed a way to bring those devices into, you know, the Ubuntu desktop and the wider Linux desktop ecosystem. So we did some work with the three largest suppliers of those biometric devices to find a way where those can be enabled on the Linux desktop. So that was done in collaboration with the libfprint project, and then also with the upstream GNOME design team, who've got a new design to improve the way you enroll your fingerprints and then do fingerprint unlock. So we don't have those new designs implemented in 2004, but they will land before 2004.1.
That is very exciting, and also just impressive, the amount of sort of backroom dealings, you know, working out arrangements that has to go on to actually make these user visible features happen.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've created a libfprint compatible protocol shim that sits in front of these proprietary drivers and translates the proprietary driver implementation into a libfprint compatible protocol.
And that'll just be a thing now going forward.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. That's very, very nice. Now, before we get to the scuttlebutt I've already seen over 2010, what else was missed in the coverage of 2004?
So I think it was subtle stuff that was more like at a distro level rather than, you know, actual features of the desktop itself. And some of this work was work that, you know, I was interested in doing at a community level, you know, and it's stuff that predated, you know, me coming back to the Ubuntu desktop team. But it's things like making sure that FFmpeg is NVENC and VAPI and OpenCL accelerated in the distro, so that things like OBS Studio and the video editors and all the rest of it can exploit all of those acceleration videos for scrubbing through timelines using acceleration and doing, you know, hardware accelerated video encode and all the rest of it.
Oh, that sounds great for folks who are, you know, new. I mean, I know how to compile those things in, but that's a big blocker if you're just trying to make some content.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, it was there in 1804, albeit with the older way that NVENC was exposed via FFmpeg. And then because of changes in the FFmpeg project, it fell away in subsequent releases, and we wanted to bring that back. So, you know, it's stuff like that, and, you know, uplifting Steam so that all of the current crop of VR devices and controllers all work out of the box when you install Steam. So, you know, a whole raft of work around improving quality of life for people that want to make videos or want to live stream or want to play games. And that also extends to including Feral's game mode, Damon.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's something that I don't recall being super easy to actually get running during the beta. So I was surprised to see it in 2004 final. Maybe I was wrong about that, but I seem to recall early on in the process having some trouble actually getting game mode for 2004.
Right. So this was the last feature we landed in Ubuntu Desktop 2004.
Okay.
And it landed release week. I think it landed on the Monday and we released on the Thursday. So it was very late coming. But it was something, if you look at the bug report for it, I think I started that process as I think it was the first thing I did when I took over from Will was actually start that process. And it sounds like a trivial thing. Well, game mode's just a bit of software and it's just a package, so that you just include it in the distro. But for everything that is in Ubuntu desktop, it has to be in the main archive. And the main archive is traditionally the archive that gets all of the security support and, proactive security maintenance. So in order to get into that archive, the security team have to conduct a manual security review and audit all of the code.
Oh, of course.
And we also have to do, packaging checks to make sure that, the upstream is active. They have the appropriate security reporting mechanisms. The health of the packaging of the software is correct. It's standards compliant and a whole bunch of things. So we've gone through that process. And again, if you look at the bug there, you will see references to the work that the security team did and the upstream conversations they had in Feral's GitHub around the security review that we did. So, there was a number of, changes and updates that happened in order for it to land in main, which I think happened a week before release and then subsequently get included in the image. So yeah, it wasn't in the beta, but it's in the final release.
Well, while we're talking about gaming, there was one new touch that I didn't, and I still haven't regretfully had a chance to try yet. And that is, if people out there have hybrid graphics, or like myself, I have an external eGPU that I've talked about before on this show. Well, now you can right click on an icon in the launcher and you can, where you normally have like new window or add to favorites, where, the options you normally have in GNOME Shell. There's an option in there to launch using the dedicated graphics card. How the hell does this work? How is this possible? And do all I have to do is just plug in my eGPU and this just shows up in GNOME Shell?
So if you have an Intel, first of all, let's start at the very beginning.
Yes.
This is an upstream GNOME feature. It was first introduced in GNOME 3.34, but it only worked with Intel and AMD drivers. And what was added in 3.36 was support for was support for NVIDIA. So if you've got an NVIDIA Intel hybrid system, you need to be running the NVIDIA proprietary drivers. And the NVIDIA proprietary drivers need to be in on-demand mode. So you're choosing that mode where the Intel IGP is in use and is rendering the desktop, and the NVIDIA GPU is in this low power state waiting to be used. And although this is a feature that I think it's integrated in glib, I may be wrong about that, but I think it's in glib. But essentially, in order to run a process on a dedicated GPU, it's just the case of setting a few environment variables prior to launching the process. So what's happening behind the scenes is a few environment variables get inserted into the execution context for the application that you've chosen to run when you right click and say launch on dedicated GPU. And it puts the appropriate environment variables in there for if you're using an AMD graphics card or an NVIDIA graphics card. And then subsequently, that process is now running with the full capability of that GPU.
I've been doing that manually, on the terminal now for a while, but
Right.
This is just such a level of finesse that it feels special. It feels like something maybe just you'd normally see on the commercial operating systems.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that GNOME 3.36 has just been a load of stuff that's landed all at once that just makes it an outstanding version of GNOME.
Mm-hmm.
There was lots of design refinement that I think was originally scoped out by the GNOME design team in 2017, and they've been slowly working towards, and then loads of it landed in this cycle. So it's a perfect time for us to be releasing an LTS, because without doubt this is the best GNOME shell ever.
Very well said, and that is going to echo in my Fedora 32 review as well. It is the culmination of years of work that are landing in this version. What a perfect release for an LTS.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's a fantastic GNOME shell release, without question.
So those are the things that are on my list. I'm curious if you have any other bits or thoughts on like the ZFS stuff or any early information on how that's going.
Yes, it's too early to look at the adoption rate on that just yet, but it's stronger than 1910, so it'll be interesting to see how many people are opting into ZFS. But the big change there is the introduction of ZSys, which is our integration layer that sits between ZFS and Ubuntu. And so that's responsible for doing event-driven snapshots. And that's mostly around if you do large package installs or upgrades, then ZFS snapshots are taken prior to those transactions being committed. So if an update goes bad, restore points are automatically exposed in the grub boot menu. So you can simply choose to, boot into the point before that upgrade took place.
And it really does work. That's what's so great, is it really works. It saved my bacon a couple of times during the beta.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that's working for you.
Yeah.
And this lays the foundations for more backup restore capabilities that we're going to be building off on top of that as we work towards 2204.
Oh. So why don't we make a quick sidebar? Because this probably will come up. Do you have any thoughts on, say, creating ZSys over extending something like Snapper?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know enough about how Snapper works and how it integrates with btreefs to have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I think you can use it for other file systems, but I am not as familiar with it as a tool myself.
So Snapper actually has a framework for supporting various file systems. Out of the box, it actually supports the out-of-tree ext4 snapshot model, LVM snapshots, of course, kernel in tree, ButterFS, naturally. And there has been a pull request, I think was recently accepted, I think at the top of the year, maybe last year or late last year, that added ZFS support. So, so it has the framework to support all of these different things.
I was going to mention, Wimpy, WireGuard obviously has been backported to the 5.4 kernel in 2004, but you were mentioning on the pre-show that 1804 users, if they're sticking with 1804, eventually they're going to get WireGuard backported as well.
That's right. So as you'll be familiar, we do point releases for the LTSs, and the next 1804 point release will have another or a newer hardware enablement stack, which will include effectively what is the 5.4 kernel from 2004, and therefore by way of that you will get WireGuard in 1804. So for those people that are wanting to use 1804 for the long term, then you'll soon have WireGuard built straight into the kernel, no DKMS modules. In fact, that's an interesting point. Because we're not using DKMS modules for things like WireGuard or the NVIDIA drivers even these days. So the NVIDIA drivers are distribute as late linked binaries that are signed. So you can leave secure boot enabled without, even with NVIDIA drivers and WireGuard turned on.
Oh, it's just so nice. Every time you update, not having to worry about DKMS. The one disappointing part there is now, what am I going to do to, pressure people to move on to 1804? I can't hold WireGuard over their head.
Yeah, this is that GNOME 3.6 goodness. GNOME 3.3.6. Well, any other spots you wanted to mention or bits of attention you wanted to shine a light on? That's a pretty good list, but...
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember everything I put in that blog post now.
Too much good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great... I suppose the thing I really want to highlight, the thing that I love above all other things about this release is the Yaru theme. It was absolutely fantastic getting together with the four guys who are the sort of the core Yaru team. We had them in the Canonical offices in London in January, and we had members of the Ubuntu design team and desktop team, and then hangers-on like me and Popey, cheering from the sidelines. And we had this week-long sprint and completely changed the face of Ubuntu for this LTS. And I have to say, I'm very proud of their accomplishments, and I love the new bold look even though it's unmistakably Ubuntu, it's quite a change of direction. I absolutely love it.
I think it's my favorite default theme so far, and we were having a conversation in the Jupiter Broadcasting Telegram group that a lot of us are loading it on other distros too, and it is fairly straightforward to do that. And it just looks so great. And I like the combination with the appearance setting in GNOME settings where I can just go and it's one click and everything's dark. And it looks really nice.
Yaru is very beautiful.
The reason it's easy to install on other distros is no mistake. That was actually a product of the design sprint in January, based on feedback that we had from Guardec and the Linux Applications Summit, which is there are obviously developers who are using distributions that are not Ubuntu, and they want to make sure that their applications look correct on, other distributions. And the criticism is, well, I don't use Ubuntu, so how can I check to see if my apps work fine on Ubuntu? So we've made sure that the Yaru theme is packaged and available everywhere it needs to be available, so you can use that theme elsewhere to make sure everything's working right.
That's great.
Yeah.
I did notice, too, in the new theme, how you guys have unveiled the fractional scaling, which is great for older dudes like me. So it's now right there in the UI.
I forgot we did that.
That's a super nice feature.
Jeez, you're my age, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm older than you, but yeah.
Okay.
So I think people
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to answer your question about fractional scaling. I think people were bored of hearing about it because that technically has been available since 1904.
Yeah.
But there was no UI for it.
Right.
But a lot of the OEM vendors that we work with have, first class high DPI laptops where 125% scaling or 150% scaling is really the sweet spot.
Yes.
So they were asking for this feature. So that's why that exists there now.
Well, I'm definitely happy that it's there. And I do like the UI that you guys have created for the fingerprint enroll system. It looks pretty cool, but I especially like the verbiage, place your little finger here on the fingerprint reader.
So that
for some reason
wasn't
that just
us.
gave me a chuckle.
Yeah, that wasn't us. We put the request into the GNOME design team, and I believe it was Sam Hewitt that was mostly responsible for that new design.
I love it.
Put your little finger on the go ahead, put your little bit of finger on there.
Exactly.
Well, it is great. Congratulations to you, the team, and of course all the upstream developers. It all came together. It's a great LTS.
Thank you very much.
Also,
I should pass those words on.
Wimpy, please pass on a thank you to whoever's making the Raspberry Pi 4 support so rocking awesome, because I've been running 2004 on my Raspberry Pi for a couple of weeks since before release, upgraded no problem to the final version now, and because of the version of kernel that's on 2004, I can boot now from USB devices, and my Raspberry Pi 4 feels like a real computer. And I'm running an LTS on there at the same time, and it's a distribution that I understand and trust. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to enroll. I'm going all in. I think I'm even going to enroll them in Landscape, so that way I can just basically manage them without having to really think about it.
That'd be a solid idea, really.
I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying Ubuntu on the Raspberry Pi. Dave Jones, who has been in and around the Raspberry Pi community for years, was hired by Canonical about 18 months ago, and he's been leading that effort to really deliver a first-class experience on the Raspberry Pi. And I'm delighted to say we're in the middle of our product strategy planning sprint for this week for what will become 2010, which is going to be the groovy gorilla. And we had our talk about Raspberry Pi, and I'm looking forward to everything to come in 2010 for Raspberry Pi users.
Oh man, you're going to get me upgrading now on my Pi. Jeez Louise. Well, it's a good problem to have. Well, great. Thank you for coming on and covering some of that stuff.
My pleasure.
I hope you get some downtime now. I hope you're going to be able to catch your breath soon.
Yeah, so we've got, like I say, we've got the product sprint this week, and that's weird because that was supposed to be in Vienna, which it isn't in Vienna. So now we're doing this weird time zone shifted thing. So we're all up at strange hours, to fit this in, because we're distributed, from each end, completely, everywhere from New Zealand to Hawaii. So, it's kind of challenging.
Holy smokes.
That's the full globe right there.
Yeah. Well, very good.
But on Friday, I'm going to hang up my boots for a week and go and sit in the garden and drink some champagne, maybe.
Well deserved.
Before we go, Minimech has one question for you, and I'm kind of interested to hear it. So go ahead, Minimech. Let's get that in.
Yeah, thank you. Wimpy, on my 18.04 Ubuntu box, I have signed into the Canonical Live Patch service to get the kernel patches live patched in. But from time to time, I had to reboot. Now I read that you did some work on that. Can you be a little bit more specific on that?
Well, we've contributed. So Live Patch is actually built on an upstream kernel implementation. So it's not our own thing. It's just leveraging what's upstream. And all we've done is contribute to that upstream effort to improve it. But yes, if you are, I can't remember if it's just Ubuntu members, but Live Patch is available in, limited numbers. I think it's like 3 or 5 machines. I think if you're an Ubuntu member, it's for 50 machines. An Ubuntu member being somebody who is in the Ubuntu community and has been recognized as somebody making a sustained commitment to the Ubuntu project. Then you get 50 activations, so all your home servers and your laptops. But it's basically like high and critical CVEs in the kernel that you will get patched via Live Patch, where you don't require a reboot in order for them to take.
Another thing I think I'm going to look forward to playing around with. All right, well, we have a bit of news that is Fedora related, so I'm really, how lucky are we to have both Wimpy and Matt here today?
Incredible.
So thank you both.
Super awesome.
Matt, congratulations on the announcement that there soon will be ThinkPads shipping with Fedora. This is huge, and people have been talking about it since the moment this announcement landed. And it looks like we're getting several models off the bat.
Yeah, what? The ThinkPad P1, P53, and X1. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, the X1. Yes. Now, I think this isn't too surprising if everyone listening remembers not too long ago we announced that Lenovo was joining the Linux vendor firmware service. And I think a lot of us went, well, I know there's a lot of Linux users that use them already, but I wonder if this is going somewhere bigger. And I think maybe we're here. So this is a big moment for the project, Matt, and it's fantastic that it's ThinkPads from Lenovo.
Yeah, I am super, super excited. And Lenovo has been amazing to work with. They're really interested in doing things the open source way, being part of the community, not stepping on things. And they really were interested in shipping the stock Fedora image without any modifications, which is very exciting for us as well, because we obviously work so hard to make that image good. So
talk to me about their comfort level with the cadence of Fedora, because it sounds like maybe that stock image aspect of it would make it maybe fairly straightforward to just keep current on whatever the latest. So when 33 ships, for example.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they're planning to do. They're already on a 6-month cadence for Windows updates. So it's basically the same thing with all of their processes. So They were not really concerned with that at all.
I'm surprised to hear that, actually. That's I didn't know they would be on that frequent of a cadence with Windows, but it is the Windows 10 era. As we've been talking about right now, Red Hat Summit's going on, and Mark P. from Lenovo was in the Fedora and CentOS community area, and he said that right now they've got these 3 platforms as a pilot, but he says that if things were, say, to go well, he could see it expanding to other platforms, including desktops.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. And although I won't say the numbers, I talked to them about the number of sales that they want to make to feel like this was a success, and it wasn't a crazy number. So I'm very optimistic that they're going to hit those targets and see this as a success, and we'll see more.
All right, well, let me ask you a question. I mean, would it be possible that going forward, when Red Hat employees want to be, or maybe they get hired or it's time to replace their rig and they just get issued a machine, could it potentially be now one of these? Could that count towards that sale number?
Yeah, I assume so. We've been talking to our IT people about that. Red Hat already has standardized on Lenovo laptops for their models, so we are going to be ordering these particular SKUs in the future. There may need to be some other models because, like you said, there are these 3 select models, and there may be use cases that Red Hat has that doesn't fit those SKUs, so we may order some other ones as well. But yeah, that should be it. And I guess they have some other large customers that were interested in Fedora. It's where the kind of demand for this came from their side. That I hopefully will fill out a lot more of them as well.
Yeah,
but of course, all of you and all of your listeners, please help out next time you have a laptop to buy. This is definitely a choice that you can make that will help.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have been waiting for a long time for current ThinkPads that would just be preloaded with Linux, and there's been various ways to get them over the years, but the nice thing about the sort of focus channel approach is that it's much easier for people who are kind of just in that shopping mode to kind of identify what they're getting. And, I've noted for years now, and that's pretty impressive to be able to actually mean that. But for years, I've noted that the upgrade cycles on Fedora have been very painless. In fact, I think I had a machine that had been upgrading from 22, and I brought it all the way up to 31 before I finally gave up and said, all right, it's working. I don't need to keep trying this. And so do you think that has started to set in the user base of Linux? Are people starting to get that you don't necessarily have to have a long-term support and you don't necessarily have to have rolling? There's a spot right here in the middle.
I hope so. We've been focusing on that for a while. We're kind of going to give the benefits of the newer software that people get with the rolling release, but with a little more predictability and the ability for us to do solid QA on it to make sure that each release is something that we feel proud to put our name on.
Right.
And then at the same time, make it so, I had a couple people tell me, oh, I upgraded over lunch. So to make it, a non-event to update to the next release. I think it's kind of a sweet spot, and I think we're doing a good job of hitting it. That along with having our actual release cycles be more predictable and making sure that, we can have the Mother's Day, Halloween releases every year, and you can basically, plan around that happening. I think that's definitely been good.
And it's such a kind of a different world now for software availability, both from video driver standpoint for both AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, but also just from a lot of the applications where you use these universal package formats and they just sort of stick around and work just between upgrades. So it also kind of abstracts that layer out. All right, so I got to go back to the laptop and I got to ask a question that I think everybody listening is wondering. Do you have any insight on when these things are actually going to be able to be purchased?
Well, as I said on Reddit, I know, but I can't tell you.
Fair.
And it's not because of lawyers. It's because of the marketing people who would like to have their big splash, and I would not like to ruin that.
Sure.
And there's some last things that they're going through to make sure all the regulatory compliance and everything is all signed off on. And so it's possible there'll be delays or something. So I don't want to promise a date that doesn't come true. But it really shouldn't be that long.
Okay. So sounds reasonable. Sounds like we don't have to wait too much longer, and there'll be news on it in the near future, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet this is great news. It made me think of folks who maybe don't have a lot of laptop choice. They're working for a larger IT organization, and that organization wants to see this support from the manufacturer. So sure, you could get Ubuntu on Dells, but now there's a whole new world of options.
Yeah, I know definitely when we joined Linux Academy, they were looking at just a couple laptop options like System 76 and the XPS 13, because if they were going to issue Linux laptops to employees, they wanted it to be supported by the OEM.
Exactly.
Even if it meant that IT actually provides all of the support, it just from almost like not a due diligence standpoint, but from like a responsibility of purchasing. If you're going to spend $1,800, $2,000 on a machine, you want it to be a supported configuration.
And have someone to yell at if it doesn't work.
That's always nice.
And so a lot of these laptops, someone on Hacker News, their first complaint was Lenovo was promised they'd have Ubuntu available and I can't buy it. And the fact is, Lenovo does ship Ubuntu and certified RHEL configurations on a number of their workstation class systems already, but they're not available to you unless you go through a very complicated channel process and are buying a whole bunch of them, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. And so this is very exciting because this will just be like when you go to buy one of these laptops, it'll be a drop down in the OS configurator. You'll be able to pick Fedora Workstation right next to whatever version of Windows you could choose instead.
Yeah, I think if I'm sure it's still having some scuttlebutt and discussion, but I think if Red Hat Summit was in person right now and this news had just dropped, it would be one of the points of conversation amongst the attendees. Is this deal?
Yeah, we were hoping to have the Lenovo people there at the Fedora booth with us. Obviously, I think the whole news cycle's been just kind of disrupted, and even your Red Hat Summit, not just going virtual, but just kind of the tone of announcements and news and press. It's like, this is not the time, so things are a lot more subdued.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we had this in the works, and we weren't going to hide it. So
I think people have noticed, though. I think at least in our circles, people have noticed. It's been getting a lot of conversation in our community channels. So I think job done. It's probably not the perfect time to make that kind of announcement, but I think you got pretty close. Well,
yeah,
as best you can, right? During these times. Well, thank you, Matt. Stick around. We're going to talk about Fedora 32 here in a little bit. But first, a little housekeeping to do is as we do. Then we're going to jump into the 32 release. If you know that we're doing this live, but you don't know when, did you know that we have a solution, Wes? Did you
sure do. Thanks to the magic of the internet.
Yeah, this is something that was brand new, so I don't blame you for never knowing about it. We've never mentioned it before on the show ever. It's jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Oh, wait, what? What was that? Oh, hold on, Wes. I'm getting a note here from the been there for almost 8 years. Oh, well, Jupiter Broadcasting. Maybe I probably don't need to mention it. jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. I say that. I just realized how fast I say that. jupiterbroadcasting.com.
jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar.
Yeah, there you go. RSS feed for this show is at linuxunplugged.com/subscribe, where you can get the feeds and put it in any podcatcher you like. If you'd like to join us in the Telegram community, it's jupiterbroadcasting.com/Telegram.
And please do.
Yes, and if you are an ACG subscriber, a Cloud Guru has launched the Cloud Playgrounds for business customers. In the biz, that term is called B2B. B2C is business to customer, and B2B is business to business.
The more you know.
Yeah, well, you think about it, you get into a place you need to skill up. It's actually a very, very handy thing.
Yeah, having good, training right there available from your employer. Hey, hard to beat.
I am thrilled to say that we had another Luplug on Sunday. Wes and I made it, and Cheesy was there, and a whole bunch of folks in the Mumble room were there. Neil was neck deep in a V-Bulletin instance and just ready to go. And we talked about the Pine devices a little bit. We really got into some really cool history stuff, too. We were really kind of talking about old Linux and just a great chat. I hung out for a couple hours. Then, I don't know, how long did anybody know how long it went after I left? Probably went for
about 3 hours after you left.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Starts around noon. Now, I think right now we have the wrong time in the IRC topic. I've been meaning to mention this. Little sidebar here, guys. Whoever can change the topic in the Luplug, it's noon Pacific, which is the same time we do the show on Tuesdays. So we just take the Tuesday time and we put it on a Sunday. You see what we did there? It's very clever. Wasn't my idea.
Keep it simple, because otherwise I don't think you would remember when to show up.
No. And you know what's weird about it is the timing, because that was when I recorded LAN on Sundays. And then the weekend that I would have been doing LAN, but I no longer had LAN, the Mumble was meeting. And it was like, I don't know, I just stepped from one to the other. It was really...
Keep your groove, and now you got more community.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And so we hang out, and I turn on the loudspeaker so my wife can listen into and have a chuckle. She loves it.
She loves it.
It was pretty great. So if you want to join us, there's an IRC room. It's irc.geekshed.net/Luplug. And then we just hang out on our Mumble room, which is kind of great because it gives you maybe a chance to try out Mumble, try out your mic before Tuesdays. And then you got everything set up. You could just join us at the same spot.
Yeah, low pressure, fun, casual hangout.
Yeah, it's pretty great. We'd love to see you. So join us on Sundays. Luplug actually went all the way to 10 p.m. Pacific. Holy cow.
Just spend your whole Sunday there.
Grab a pizza, grab a couple of beverages, and put your feet up. All right, well, today, Fedora 32 is officially released. You may recall a few episodes ago, episode Diggity...
I put it lower down in the doc.
You did.
348.
348. That was a really fun episode. So linuxunplugged.com/348. We took one of the big features of Fedora 32 and just sort of zoomed in on that. And that is the early out-of-memory killer. And it's fascinating the difference it makes. So check that out, because that's a big part of what makes Fedora 32 on the desktop experience a little bit different. But along with that is your standard updates to things like GNOME. You have GNOME 3.36 in here, which includes that new beautiful login and unlock screen, which nailed that thing.
I mean, I've been using it for a while, but every time I wake my computer up, it's just a treat.
That's just such a great example. Like Wimpy was intimating earlier, that work was started in 2017 at a Hackfest in London, and now it's landed here in 2020. That is just sort of it's a special thing that is you gotta actually use it to see it, because I think it's better than. It's better than the commercial distros, I think. I mean, the commercial desktop operating systems.
It really is. It feels beautiful, full stop.
Yeah, it feels elegant. So along with Early Out of Memory Manager enabled by default, which helps improve the desktop experience, and then the fixes that have landed in GNOME 3.36 that have helped improve experience in I/O loads. So that's something that a lot of work went into with this release of GNOME, where these bug fixes landed, is rooting out what caused GNOME Shell to stall during heavy I/O load situations. And tons of those fixes have landed. Fedora 32 sort of doubles down on that by including that early out of memory killer, but also by doing things like enabling trim by default on the SSDs and switching firewall defaults to using NF tables.
Fedora, you're so modern.
So tell us about this, Wes. This is kind of a neat little trick.
Yeah, I mean, NF tables has been around since 2013, I think, and that's been a long time. But as usual, no major distros have gotten around to really adopting it or adding it in places. Sure, you could use it yourself. It's been in the kernel, and really that's sort of what, folks upstream in the kernel have been working on.
Been in the kernel since kernel 3.13. That's how long it's been in the kernel.
Feels like a long time ago.
But, nobody's used it, like you said. So this is kind of, I guess, the quote-unquote new packet filtering engine, if you could call it that. But why? Why?
Well, as always, when you upgrade things, you just get rid of some of the cruft from the past. There's a lot of code duplication and inconsistencies in the current IP tables world. In particular, there's a lot of protocol-specific extensions that are hacked in there to make it work for an individual protocol, and nothing that would let you match on packet fields or do that in a more elegant way. So instead of having to add in all this custom work, that's just handled for you. There's also a lot better handling if you've got a dual stack setup, so IPv4 and IPv6 at the same time. If anyone's used IP tables for that and had to use both IP tables and IP6 tables, it's just kind of a confusing mess, and that's a lot better handled in NF tables.
That's nice. And something that I haven't yet played with, but seems like one of those things that'd be worth just dorking around with. There's also the adoption of sysusers.d format, which I also don't really quite understand or even really appreciate what this is. Can you help me understand this one?
Well, so if you think about it, a lot of packages are out there installing users, right?
Yeah.
But that's not always super introspectable, especially if it's just in some, like post-install script where they run the actual commands to just install the user. So this change uses the sysusers.d format, adds some hooks into the packaging system so that you can do this in a declarative way. And there's kind of a theme in a lot of these changes around being more declarative. So you can just look at the packaging and see like, oh, it needs this user, and then you'll know that that'll actually get handled in the right way.
So instead of like hashing together some sort of bash script that like checks to see if that UID and GID exist and all of that, it's just sort of like a handoff to say, hey, OS, I want this thing done.
Yeah, exactly. There's also maybe some changes in the future to integrate with systemd sys users. Now, that's not happening now, but this change makes a future switch like that easier. You can just stub it out.
There's other small tweaks like DNF getting a little bit faster at counting a few things, although I think we're about to realize the benefits of that in the next release. Also, the ability to restart services at the end of an RPM transaction has been changed.
So that's another one of those declarative changes where, you could do that yourself, but, you might have complicated dependencies between different services, and you need to get that right. So now, again, you can see what needs to be restarted. You can register that with the package system so that all those things get started at once, and you avoid some of those nasty race conditions.
This is what I love about a Fedora release is on the surface, it's like, oh, it's a new GNOME shell. Okay, right. But when you actually go below the surface and you see what they're doing here. You see like there's so much stuff that we've been talking about for months now that is landing. Like kernel 5.6, which has WireGuard, Python 3.8, LLVM 10, but also GCC 10, which is a big deal, and Systemd 245. So the big deal about Systemd 245, version 245, if you can believe that, is the first release that includes the new Systemd HomeD stuff.
Ooh, changing the world once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, nothing's really being done with it at this time, but it's there now.
Yeah, you've got home CTL right on your command line already. After you install, you can start setting things up. I tried it a little bit and didn't quite get it working before the show, but I've also never used it before, and it will definitely be something I'm playing with.
That seems like a big deal. I don't know. That's like a big one. And then the other thing that we've been watching for what feels like 100 years, but has seen some significant improvements in this release is Pipewire. Some early work on kind of making Pipewire sort of fit and finish stuff is now getting laid down. But more importantly, this release, they say, has basically full-on Jack compatibility and full Jack support. So now Pipewire can fully integrate with Jack on both ends. And they did something I can't remember because I just read this morning, but essentially they've changed the way they do like a direct frame buffer copy for streaming the desktop, and they've made it much more efficient now to like capture the desktop and put that into a video stream and send that to an application. That's had a rework as well.
Oh, darn. Sounds like we're going to have to reinstall the studio after the show.
Yeah, right. But I mean, those are some of the things that jumped out at me. Was there any other nuts and bolts before we get the bacon take?
Hey, also retiring Python too.
Yeah.
You know, and that's another sign of those changes where it has to happen. It's been a long time. Fedora isn't afraid to push ahead.
There's some performance benchmarks if you like those kinds of things that we have linked in the show notes. Michael Larrable did the whole Fedora 32 versus 2004 versus X11 versus Wayland and then also one that I always love is the cross desktop benchmarks.
Right.
GNOME Shell versus LXCE versus Plasma and all the others. That's all linked in there. Essentially, the takeaway is it depends, which is what always happens with these reviews on like all these sort of similar releases.
You know, as I've been playing with the beta up till the release today, I will say Fedora 32 has been a dream to virtualize. Even just, using Wayland, no issues whatsoever. I kind of forgot I was using it in a virtual machine for a while.
Yeah, I should talk about that too, actually. So hold on, Mr. Bacon, then we'll get to the bacon taker. And then I want to bring Matt in. So I put this on the Lemur Pro from System 76, and man, it feels so wicked fast that it's been one of those where like I show it to people and I'm like, try this, and that is from the entire experience. Part of both 2004 and Fedora 32, part of the boot experience now is so smooth because they're using the OEM UEFI logo stuff.
Right, exactly. Hands off from the bootloader very nicely. And
so it boots about as long as it used to take a PC to just post. That's literally how long it takes the Lemur Pro with Fedora 32 to boot. Like when you'd beep, and then you get a memory count, and then it would flip over to the next screen and it'd show all your PCI devices, or ISA. And then you would go to your bootloader, and then your OS boots. With this, it's vendor logo, then there's a flash of the vendor logo, and then there's a flash and you're on, it's not even really a flash, it's more of a transition, and you're at GDM.
I mean, you almost can't tell, like, was this just hibernated or suspended, or did I do a full boot?
Yeah, I'd say it's just a few shakes slower than waking from sleep. If sleep waking wasn't so dang fast now, like if it was like what used to be back when you used to have like a disk spin up or something, yeah, it's really, really fast. And it's smooth. The theme is clean.
Very clean.
And the GNOME experience is also very clean because there's not a lot of tweaks. Some of the things I got to admit I do like that Canonical tweaks is like the appearance tab, and I've learned to kind of like my favorites to a dock thing. So there's just extensions I go turn on, but it's even easier to manage that now because there's a dedicated extensions app that's like officially upstream supported, and so it's even easier now to manage your extensions and toggle ones that aren't working and toggle them on and off. And I love all that.
Right. I don't know about you, but as great an experience I had on 2004, I think Fedora 32 is feeling faster.
The performance does seem a little bit snappier.
It's been super snappy.
Yeah, it's been and I did a clean install last night of the ISO image, and it was within seconds. I had everything up to date. The software experience is really smooth. for installing both firmware packages, but also the OS upgrades.
No kidding.
And then that nice little pop-up asking if you want to turn on third-party repos is clean and just simple.
If you'd show me this, like even let's say three years ago, I don't know I would believe it was desktop Linux.
It really is pretty great. So what was the bacon take?
Well, I mean, there were a few things. Again, I just looked at it with my bacon eyes, I suppose.
Your cheesy bacon eyes.
My cheesy bacon eyes. I do like the wallpapers that they've put in. There's some pretty stylish ones that they've created for themselves, especially the 3D printed one, because I'm a nerd like that, and I've been 3D printing everything as of late.
I thought you might like that one. And honestly, it just looks really sharp, the nice depth of field in there.
Exactly. And so that's my default wallpaper at the moment. And one thing that I really liked about your first initial impression of Fedora was the fact that, especially for new users, you have the help comes up right there, but they've also added these nice little video clips just to show you how to navigate the GNOME system itself. So how to switch workspaces, how to quickly open up the applications menu. And I think that those are nice little touches, especially for someone that, might be getting a Lenovo laptop preloaded with Fedora and have never used Linux before. So this might, really help those types of users out. Hot corners was enabled by default. I know that I'm a savage for liking hot corners, but I do love me some hot corners. So it's nice to see that was enabled by default. And I thought another really interesting feature was how once you initially installed the system, the updates were done in the background for you on that first boot and then applied for you on the reboot. So similar to how you would have a progress bar with Windows or Mac OS or something like that, letting you know that updates are being installed. I thought that was a really clean way to handle that initial first boot. And I think that kind of goes back to, these additional little features like the videos and helping new users kind of get a feel for it and understand the system. There were a couple of dislikes, things that I think could be worked on. I think the partitioning is still a little awkward, especially if you are a new user and you're coming over. It's definitely not as clean, in my opinion, as, say, Ubuntu is on partitioning and knowing what you're going to do. The bug that I had with Ubuntu, the GNOME bug that I had with the GNOME menu, that's been solved. So that's nice to see. They updated, I think, to Grub2 2.04 TAC 13, and I think Ubuntu was 2.04 TAC 4 or TAC 5, something like that. So it's nice to see that they've upgraded that, which fixed my boot menu issues that I was having with Ubuntu betas. The GNOME Shell folder bug still exists in 32, which that's, a GNOME thing. So if you go click on the utilities folder, for example, you scroll all the way down, you can't read the last line of text under the icons. However, if you launch the terminal, then go back to their menu, scroll down, look into that utilities folder, you can see all of the text underneath the icons.
Yeah.
A couple of things like Telegram wasn't available for me in the default store. So I had to go to FlatHub and pull that down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that, and you guys would probably know more about this, but I don't know if FlatHub is integrated into the software store.
Well, when you go to FlatHub and you do the quick setup, after that point, it will be. It's just added as one of the repositories.
But Flatpak itself is pre-installed.
Yes. Yeah, just the FlatHub repo is not added. But thankfully, it's like a one-line command. You don't even have to sudo for it. It'll just GTK sudo will prompt
add it
you.
into the repos.
Yeah.
Got you. So I didn't do that, but I was able to find Telegram through FlatHub and get it that way. Again, fractional scaling, while built in, it wasn't in the UI. So not really a big deal for me on my test machine. But when I'm pushing, something on my 4K monitor, I would like to see that available there. And I thought it was kind of weird that there were two image viewers. So you had photos and then images as well. Photos, I assume, is a Fedora project, while images is a GNOME project.
Well, I think it's photos is like to manage and organize a photo library, similar to photos on macOS and iOS. And then image viewer or Viewer, whatever it's called, is for like viewing JPEGs in your downloads folder or PDFs and things like that.
Right, it doesn't have the same sort of like albums or favorites or that sort of stuff.
Got you. And that's kind of what I thought would be the case, right? It would be more for managing photos as opposed to images. I noticed that you could crop and rotate and do a couple editing features in there as well. But I didn't take a deep dive into either one of those applications, to be honest. But I think overall it's a great release. I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked the little nuanced features that they added for the new user. The theming, I think, they've just used the stock GNOME theme. I think that's something they could work toward in the future, is maybe dialing that in a little bit. And maybe enabling.
Careful, you could be touching the third rail there on that one. You know how contentious the whole theming thing gets. I think all of us are looking forward to, and maybe I'll bring Matt in on this point, is I believe in the next release of Fedora there is going to be a transition for DNF that will improve performance fairly considerably. Did I read that right, Matt? That's being worked on for the next release?
They're working on it. I don't know how much of it's going to land in the next release, because when you're looking at the update system, it's fairly sensitive. So you want to make sure any changes like that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, better to take it slow and steady with that. So I was sitting here thinking, Fedora in a very special way represents the collective works of so many upstream projects, some of which Red Hat incubates and others outside of that. And when you look at the Fedora 32 releases, like the announcements, some of the things get touched on, but it not to be cliche, but it seems like one of those iceberg scenarios where so many things about Fedora are actually below the surface. And, I appreciate the Fedora magazine posts and all of that, but do you get what I'm saying? It seems like a lot of this stuff doesn't really get exposed unless the end user really goes and digs.
Yeah, and this is actually something we had some pretty awesome volunteers in our docs team a while ago who would put together really detailed release notes, and that's kind of fallen off in the past couple of years. So this is something we could use help with. I would love to have more details covering much more of.
Oh, I lost you there.
Oh, sorry.
Just pick up.
This is I have to hold down on the mouse to talk.
I'm sorry. Well, appreciate you doing it. Here, just pick up like you never dropped off, and Drew will snip it up.
Wait, I need the setup again because I forgot what I was even talking about.
Okay, no problem. So, man, I wonder if you've noticed something that has stood out to Wes and I, Matt, and that is, as we dug into this for research for the show, we realized there was significantly more in this release than what is in the written press right now. And not to like take away from what they've done, because it's great that it's getting coverage. But it seems like Fedora has a bit, and I hate to be cliche, but it has a bit of an iceberg scenario where some of the big features like the new desktop release or out-of-memory killer or some package transition, those are visible. But then below the surface, there's so many more things about this release of Fedora that we didn't realize until we started doing our research. And I wonder if you feel like that stuff isn't properly getting exposure, if you've noticed this too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there are thousands of packages in Fedora with a huge rate of change. And we used to, a couple of years ago, have a couple of people on our docs team who were really dedicated to making sure we had release notes that had a broad coverage of a lot of that change. And that's kind of fallen off just as people have moved on to other things. And it would be awesome to have some people focusing on that again. So that's an area we could use some help. So this is maybe a call to help. Join the Fedora docs team and see what you can do around release notes. It's an easy way to make things better.
What a great way to contribute.
And in the announcements, we kind of try to pick a few highlights. But even there, I kind of rely on people to tell me, hey, this is an interesting thing I did. And then I kind of talk together with our marketing people and our PR people and say, okay, what are the things we should kind of put at the front here so that they get the attention this time around. And I try to rotate those things a little bit so it's not always like new version of GCC every time or whatever piece of software, new GNOME, new CoreOS things. So there's a little bit of different attention, but yeah, there's so much it can't all get the attention it deserves.
Yeah, there really is. And you would think, oh, it's a small release, but there's so much in there. And then there's so many packages that have such huge things still changing. and we just go along and upgrade, and it all just works typically almost
Right.
always.
I think what we want is the nerd report, all the nitty, like kernel newbies, but for Fedora.
Yeah, really, that'd be great. Somebody get on that. Get in contact with Matt and let him know. Matthew, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they actually did want to maybe help out with that?
You can join our Fedora mailing lists, Matt DM on Twitter, Matt DM Fedora on Reddit, or those are probably the best places. You can email me. I'm generally available. IRC, I'm around.
Well, I got to say, this release with the improvements to GNOME Shell and whatnot feels wicked fast. I mean, it really is pretty impressive at being a long-time desktop Linux user and seeing this level of improvement continually over the years. I think it's something that we take for granted. It could have gone very much the other way. It could be getting slower and more
Right.
bloated, and we've gotten the exact opposite. Is there anything that's in this 32 release that you don't think is getting a lot of attention right now that you want to shed a little light on?
I think we've got a couple of interesting things. One of them is finally the Fedora Core OS. We are getting to our different streams of having a next and updates and a stable stream in Fedora Core OS, which is an important step of making that actually something I really want to recommend people to use to install their compute clusters and things on top of. I know this show focuses a lot on the desktop. Desktop's very exciting. We've got some nice non-desktop things.
No, I love I love talking about the server stuff too. We just try to, not overdo it. But I'll tell you what, that's the stuff I love talking about. So you go right ahead.
Yeah. And I think another neat thing, the computational neuroscience SIG in Fedora, special interest group, put together a spin of the desktop. You can basically install a live CD that has all of this neuroscience stuff on it, so that people in the neuroscience community can get their brain imaging and all of the software, open source software that does that in one nice, easy, slick place. And I really love this because obviously that's a niche, but I really want Fedora to be a place where people who have niche interests can come and make a solution for their particular users and groups. Another one that's in the works, we've had a Fedora Jam audio focused version of Fedora for a while, and someone has picked that up again. And I think especially with the Pipewire stuff you were talking about, really want to have Fedora be a premier system for doing audio production. I think that'll be pretty neat.
Well,
I noticed
hearing that.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that image. I'm like, mental note, gonna check that out in a bit. I also noticed a gaming ISO. What's the gaming image?
Yeah, that one hasn't been updated for a little while, but it's kind of an idea about sort of showcasing open source games. So it's not so focused on, the big news, of course, now is, Proton and Steam on Linux and kind of proprietary games, which is cool.
Yeah, but it is nice to remind ourselves, like, there's some really great free games too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what that is meant to show off. And I think that's kind of a neat thing. In general, I would love for anybody who has, kind of a special interest and thinks that there would be a particular, focus they could put on the operating system that would showcase something for their users. Another one I often give as an example is the Python Classroom Lab, which is meant to, for teachers teaching how to program in Python. It's going to have an environment you can boot into, and there you go. Everything's all ready for you. That kind of thing.
Well, 32 just continues this feeling that I've had for, I think, really since like 28 or 29, and that is that Fedora is such a great DevOps showcase Linux workstation OS. And I just, like the same thing I felt for 24. It's like we're so fortunate to have all of this great work from all these different projects kind of coming together and landing.
Yes.
And I think it's pretty cool that you guys went ahead and pulled the trigger on the early out-of-memory killer stuff, too. Like, that's something else a lot of people aren't moving on. Were you involved in any of the conversations or the maybe pros and con debates on actually doing something that's kind of aggressive like that?
That one I watched go by, and it seemed like the conversation was going okay.
They had one.
So there sometimes some of these development conversations feel like they are going off the rails or need some intervention, but I think a lot of times the process just kind of works. There was another example of that I thought was pretty awesome in this distribution. If you're looking through those Phoronix performance results, you'll see that Python in particular is a lot faster. And this is because someone had a suggestion that Python would be a lot faster if it were compiled statically rather than dynamic linking, for some technical reasons related to Python, blah, 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 which is cool, but there's a lot of downsides to static linking Python. So kind of the community discussing together came up with an idea of a particular compiler flag, which gives a lot of the benefits with much smaller downsides. You actually can't LD preload things into Python anymore the way we're building it. But as a result, we get like a 20% performance increase on Python, which is huge.
That really does feel like a great developer's workstation. I just always notice like kexec's already installed. A ton of the tools that I have to install on other distributions, Fedora has them right out of the box.
Also, I have to give honorable mention. I didn't really do much with it this time around, but Fedora Toolbox, I believe, has been transitioned from like a Bash project to a Go project. And there's some story around that too.
Well, the Bash was always kind of a prototype, and once, as a sysadmin, once your Bash scripts gets to be more than fits in one screen of your text editor, it's probably time for it to stop being a Bash script.
Oh, I think Wimpy might disagree. You should see some of his Bash scripts.
And it had exceeded that by quite a bit in complexity, so it was time for it to move on to something else. And just a lot of the tooling, Podman and container tooling is written in Go, so Go is a natural ecosystem choice for that.
We really should make our pick that Bash. What was that? Bash Top? Is that what it was called? That monstrosity Bash script. There's a bonus app pick for everybody. Go check out Bash Top. And you know what? Fedora Toolbox is very, very handy. So I've talked about it before on the show, but it's such a quick way to get like an environment where you share a lot of the same. How do you put it? Not variables and whatnot, but it feels very much like you're on the same box. You're in the same. You can share resources, but you also are able to play in a way that's isolated from the rest of the operating system, and you can recreate them and spin them up very fast. And I just loved it. But I didn't really give it a go this time around because I got the concept, but I appreciate that the work's continuing and the investment's continuing there.
Yeah, and it's a really nice way to basically, especially, it was designed for running on CoreOS and on Silverblue, where you have an immutable base OS.
Right.
But it is, so on those systems, it's basically vital because you kind of need to have some environment to mess with. So this gives you that. But it's also really useful just on a standard Fedora workstation desktop to give you, kind of that sandbox space where it's safe to mess it up, and then you can, destroy it and create a new one or whatever.
Well, especially if you're you're a bozo like me who's installing 30 different apps a week so he can talk about them on his podcast. Eventually your system starts to pay for that. So that's what when I was running Fedora as my main workstation, I really found that pretty useful. I wonder if I can get Fedora Toolbox on Manjaro right now. But it's very nice.
I bet you can.
Yeah, something tells me. Oh, yeah, something tells me. Well, cool, Matt. I mean, I got to say, congratulations to you and the entire team. Another great release, and our team installed it and pretty much universally liked it. And we were telegramming each other back and forth, like, did you see this? What about that? Yeah, it's very fast, and I'm running on this. Okay, I have it in this VM, and I very much concur with Wes. It was pretty performant in all of those situations. It feels like this is the fastest Linux we've ever had. And I know there's some benchmarks that suggest otherwise, but I don't know, man. When you put everything together, when you put the GNOME shell improvements together, you put even having trim on the SSDs, you put an early out of memory manager on there, plus the improvements like with Python and whatnot, like it all really comes together to a fantastic release of Fedora.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, actually. Don't thank me. I'm thanking you guys. Please thank the whole team. Really.
I will.
So, would it be outrageous for me to ask you what the not so distant future might hold for Fedora, as far as you're concerned?
More of the same, I think.
Yeah. Steady.
Continuous releases on a cadence. I'm excited about more of the IoT stuff. Hopefully, we'll get some more devices. We've always had some trouble with, everybody's favorite Raspberry Pi with, upstream support and things like that. And, Fedora we really like to keep everything so that we have one operating system that installs on all devices, not a separate kernel, not these kind of things. And so that's been a long road. I think that as the ARM device, you world matures, we'll have more things that Fedora will work out of the box on. And I think there's some neat stuff in Fedora IoT that's coming up. I hope to see some cool stuff around that with Fedora 33.
Cool. I agree on those points. I do hope to see some more maturing there. We'll talk, maybe Wes and I will talk about our Rock Pro experiments in the post show. Because I think that was...
Yeah, in particular, actually, the Rock chip stuff has a lot of new support in Fedora 32.
Right.
So hopefully that should go more smoothly for you.
I'm hoping so. We'll find out. Wes Payne will be back with the results in a moment. But before we get there, I just wanted to say thanks for coming by, Matt. I know it's probably a super busy time, and, probably... If you have a little downtime, the last thing you really want to do is jump on the computer and chat with people about it. You'd probably love to just be kicking back and relaxing and having a beer right now. So I appreciate you making the time.
Oh, yep. I'm going to be back to the Red Hat Summit now.
Oh,
so.
right. Right, of course. It's no downtime for you. It's Summit time. I forgot, of course.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Glad to. Bye.
And congratulations again. And Wimpy, congratulations again to your team on the release. Thank you for stopping by. And a big plug for the Ubuntu podcast. Go check out the Ubuntu podcast at ubuntupodcast.org. Season 13 is in full swing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for
those
coming.
look like some tasty potatoes.
You know what, Wes?
We do make good potatoes.
You guys are making me hungry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not done podcasting yet. We have a whole post show still. Well, we'll see about that, actually. We're getting long. We'll see. Before we go, I want to mention that this show actually has a Twitter account if you want to be following. I don't know. Maybe you want to be up to date on, new releases. Maybe you want to know when things are live. I don't know. I don't know what you want. It's Linux Unplugged, right? Just at Linux Unplugged? Is that what it is?
At Linux Unplugged.
That's what it is.
You say it like that, so I believe you think that's what it is, but I know you're double checking just in case it's not that right now.
You gotta do your due diligence. And I'm right.
All right. We'll be live again next Tuesday at noon Pacific, and links for everything we talked about at Linux Unplugged/351. See you next Tuesday! Let's do a little jbtitles.com voting, jbtitles.com. And so you and I were doing kind of concurrent projects before the show started because our Mumble server was down. And so I was kind of keeping the live stream up to date and chatting with the Mumble admins who are wonderful people, volunteers that are truly just the best people on the earth that took care of a little outage we had right before the show, which, clearly our virtual lug is such a huge part of this podcast. So the fact that we were possibly going to be without Mumble, I was slightly panicked. So Mitfree jumped in on it and it got the system back up and running, and we were able to keep going. So
saved the show.
While we were kind of doing all of that, you were out in the server room, aka Studio Garage, and you were messing around with the Rock Pro 64 we have out there and Fedora images. Now the thing is I didn't get a chance to see if it actually ended up working or not. So how far did you get with Fedora 32 on the Rock Pro?
Not quite. We're still learning our way around that thing. That's for sure. And it seems like occasionally when we reboot it, it needs a little cool down period before it's ready to try booting up again.
Like fully unplugged.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm not sure if other people experience, but we have to kind of leave it unplugged or else it won't post again properly, it seems.
Only after a failed boot. We can reboot it from the command line and it comes right back up.
Totally
so that's
fine.
not a problem.
Yeah.
So based on my limited knowledge in deciphering, while the Manjaro image that we used as a test booted up just fine, neither of the two Fedora images I found were able to do so.
Okay. And that's just from the SD card.
Yeah, and these are just the ones, put out on the alternative downloads page from today. So I don't know that they've been optimized for anything but, the processors. And so there may need to be some bootloader work, etc. done to actually get it loaded and working.
As they say in your Zoom meetings, we're going to circle back on that topic and put a pin in it and see if we can't sync on a solution and then maybe bring some other stakeholders in and verify the results.
Oh my God, Chris. I was trying so hard not to say anything, and then you kept going.
I can just keep going too. That's the worst thing about it. I can just keep going.
Yeah. So with you were trying this with the Rock 64 was what you said?
Yeah, the Rock Pro 64. Mm-hmm.
So I actually saw a post from Peter Robinson about it earlier today on the Fedora ARM mailing list. It just missed being fully fixed for Fedora 32 GA. So he is working on it. I think he's got some instructions on how to just make it work after the fact. But I think with a couple of post-release updates, everything like graphics and whatnot will actually come up correctly. I don't remember the exact particulars, but you can check the Fedora ARM mailing list because there's actually a topic about this right now.
Okay.
Oh, that's great to know.
So I think we will revisit.
I mean, with how much we've been fawning about it today, I want to try it on that machine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone, I'll stop on the old recordings. I'll stop, guys, and flack it up. I'll stop and flack it up. Let's all stop and flack it up.
Pencils down.
Should we flack it up?
Drew, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to intro you or not, so I just punted on it or not. We should just chat on that beforehand. I wasn't sure.
Oh, no. I was mostly just listening today.
Yeah, no, I know. I just wasn't sure, so I just meant to ask you before we started, so I apologize I didn't intro you guys. But I was trying to do the math live in my head and was like, I'll just keep going.
I'm not gonna hate, but you did forget to intro me like 3 weeks in a row.
It's because of the Drew thing. I don't know what to do there, so I punt on it. That's why. But then I forget about it until I'm doing it, and then I'm like, oh shit, right? I haven't figured this out yet. And
so then you just skip right over to the mumble room.
But the music's playing, and
there's a tight timeline.
If you listen, you can hear it. You can hear a moment where I awkwardly move on, and I don't know what else to do. It's in there. I'm like, shit.
Oh my God, Drew, that folder is so clean. Jesus.
I always have to jump my fingers over to the push to talk because you always say to appropriate greetings before I'm ready.
Yeah, you never know when it's coming.
Like that.
You never know. But I think we should bring you in, Drew. You should at least say holler or something for a bit. I don't know. You don't have to. I mean, it depends on.
I like that you're here.
Yeah, it's cool.
What's funny is I actually jumped in on the hello from the mumble, but I'm not going to end up using it because that's one extra track. I can
right. You're going to delete yourself. You're cutting yourself.
Your choice.
That's fun.
Oh, yeah.
But, Fedora is like Drew's cup of tea, too.
I want to mention that if you want to hear some further thoughts on Ubuntu 2004, go listen to, was it yesterday's Late Night Linux that came out? The guys did a review of 2004 over there, too.
Yeah, I need to pull down the latest image for that and give it another go.
It is review season. All right, jbtitles.com. Fedora, Ubuntu, GNOME, OMI. I feel like we've done a few OMIs, though. That's the only thing.
True.
Yeah, we've done a fair number of those recently.
That's where I got the idea.
Oh, yeah, it is a thing. Yeah, it is a thing.
You'll notice I own the majority of the titles and the majority of the top titles because, nobody else thinks about it. I'm just making titles and voting myself up.
That's the game, man. That's the game. As you're listening live, you sit there with the Bang Suggest pre-armed. That's what I do when I listen to a Westlife show. I sit there with the Bang Suggest pre-armed, and then
I gotta set up the KDE shortcut that automatically.
There you go.
Bang Suggest.
That's a tactical Bang Suggest right there. That's what that is. Mm-hmm. When you bind a key. So I just throw it in the old buffer, and then I just boom it on there, and then just type it out. And I rock it when I do that. I could not come up with a title to save my life if I do the show,
right? Yeah.
Right, and then after the fact. But if I'm listening to you and you and Mike do a show, I was like, no problem.
Gosh, you had some great titles for those. And I was very appreciative.
Tell you what.
Come on, today's my day, and the answer is 32.
I think that's a solid title.
Definitely a solid, good title.
Yeah,
it's very good, but I've got alliteration on my side.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Lenovo loves Linux.
Oh, that one's alliterative.
Yeah, I am kind of partial to alliteration, so that one.
I mean, that's why I suggested the favorite Fedora, but not as good.
Come on, vote for me.
What we need is a lot of voting here to sort this out, so we don't have to make any difficult decisions.
I
mean, you're going to make the difficult decision anyway. You've already made up your mind.
Thank you.
You're just making us sweat it out.
Hey, I'm going to throw out an idea, and you guys tell me if you think I'm crazy. Okay?
Can I just say that I think
you're crazy?
Yeah, we'll pre-vote.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
pre-vote.
Fair enough.
Too late for that.
I opened myself up for that one, didn't I?
You did.
What do you think about the idea? I'm not talking about like huge numbers here, but what do you think about the idea that Apple switching the Macs to ARM might make more people switch to desktop Linux? Because I think it's a much more significant transition than, say, from like 32-bit to 64-bit, which is already something people don't really talk about, but been a very challenging thing for the Mac platform, especially for old school, which is a huge portion of the Mac user base. Old school media production apps, both visual arts and audio arts, require lots of 32-bit apps and plugins, and I happen to know a few guys that now just have switched to Linux, and they run the Windows equivalents just via Wine, and they have the same tools available to them, but it's on the Linux platform, so they don't have to deal with Windows.
It is a big test for the like sort of long-term stability of the operating system, right? I mean, Windows has done so much to be backwards compatible, and it's not going to have that.
So if you're a Mac user, there's certain apps that will go away forever, and one of the ways to get them would be to switch to Linux and run the Windows equivalents under Wine. And I know guys that are doing it.
So there's a couple of problems with that. The first problem is what if people are using apps that only existed on Mac OS? And
that's another problem.
That's pretty huge in the film industry. Like
Final
film
Cut
and
stuff.
Yeah, if you're using Final Cut and Premiere,
you're screwed.
I think they'll port.
So maybe
Premiere's on Windows.
Premiere's on Windows, so that's not a big deal. But
that stuff's all going to get ported, though. The Adobe stuff will get ported. The Apple stuff will get ported. But people that are using apps that aren't from them, there are still a fair amount of apps that are like small independent stuff. That's all going to go away.
Yeah,
so
if
the application was written in Swift, which a lot of them have been in the last 3 years.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking stuff that's like some of the stuff's like 32-bit applications.
I know. The 32-bit applications are already broken. Remember, Catalina broke them all.
Yeah, that's why Catalina has had a leg of adoption way more so than any previous version of
I
macOS.
still haven't upgraded. I still haven't upgraded Catalina because it will break pretty much my entire workflow once I do.
Yeah.
And I still need to be able to do some stuff on macOS.
And I am concerned about that taken to the next level with an ARM transition. Unless they put an x86 CPU in it too, which would drive the cost up.
They're going to do a binary translator.
But that's going to be so slow.
That's what they're going to do. That's what Microsoft did. Microsoft put a binary translator into their Windows on ARM platform.
Yeah, but Windows RT failed hard.
That is not the point. I am saying that because of Apple's, distortions fields.
I don't know. I don't think so.
And all those things that they're going to.
That's the exact kind of thing that won't work well for the kind of apps I'm talking about. I'm talking about stuff that's.
But didn't they do that with like the PowerPC era too?
Yeah, but that was.
And it worked for 3 years.
But
that's why Adobe was so slow with porting.
It's not equivalent because the x86 chips were so much faster that they could successfully emulate the PowerPC instructions at a reasonable use.
Yeah, but couldn't you see Apple thinking about that? I mean, they're the ones designing these ARM chips.
Yeah, they'd have
specifically accelerate those sorts of things.
I mean, emulation of x86 on ARM has been so horrendous that it's unusable.
Yeah.
So here, the reason for that is that the inequivalency in the instructions, right? CISC versus RISC.
But then if you start adding
to CISC easily, but the other way around is hard.
Don't you lose a lot of efficiency of these CPUs?
Jump to RISC.
Hey, I think you lose a lot of the efficiency of the CPU. So the rumor is, and I only kind of skimmed the article, but Mark Gurman has a fairly good track record over at Bloomberg, and the rumor is that they are working on they're going to take the A14 series of CPUs, which is going to be in the next iPhone, and they've split that development track, and they're making a desktop version of the A14 and an iOS version of the A14. The desktop version will be an 8-core die with 8 high-performance cores and 4 low-performance cores.
Ooh.
Yeah, like
the big little architecture.
So the big little.
Yeah, so the high-performance cores are called like Firestorm or something, and the low-performance cores are called Ice Storm or something like that. And they're also going to supposedly do their own GPU, which they already do on the latest iOS devices. So, but it, I mean.
So what? Was the argument that the 32-bit library is no longer being supported?
Well, it's just all these x86 apps that won't get ported. Like you just look at the 32 transition. I was making an equivalency that so many apps haven't made the transition to 64-bit that they just lost and that will never be moved now, but there are still very valid workflows that use them, and that will happen at a whole other scale with x86 to ARM. There will be apps that will never get moved, or that will be at the point in which vendors will just say, you know what, screw the Mac, we're just going to focus on Windows, and they will just abandon the platform and not bother because, frankly, it's not worth their time. And I think it'll be a huge loss of software availability for the Mac if they make the transition to ARM. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't see a few
Apple
folks.
has a backup plan.
What?
It's the iOS stuff. All of that stuff will seamlessly turn into Mac apps.
Well, and all of those iPad apps are going to be all those iPad apps are going to be Mac apps.
And also, one thing you mentioned was that people like who do video and audio production stuff, they're going to have a hard time transitioning over. So they might just bump those into Wine and use the Windows version.
Maybe.
Especially for video production stuff, I feel like is going to run horribly.
Well,
with,
if you, it depends. If you write to the, if you like, I think Adobe is already switched over to using Metal for everything. Like
I have had terrible experience with Wine.
I think if you're using Metal on the Mac platform, you'll be fine. But Drew, you were gonna say something.
Yeah. There's a whole sunk cost thing going in with this development. So if you've been developing stuff for x86 and for Mac for forever, and then all of a sudden all of your software, it hurts to suddenly say, oh well, yeah, you got to recode or you're not going to be on any new platforms.
Especially, right, Chris, we've been talking a lot about this independent and like the rich ecosystem of independent Mac apps. It's one thing to retool at Adobe.
Right.
It's another if you're a single or two-person dev shop.
Right. And I think that's what makes the Mac good is all those indie apps. It's, of course, nice to have the big commercial apps, but there's good indie apps.
But, I mean,
is there a rich ecosystem of indie apps?
Yes, very much so.
Aren't there
I don't know. Apple's been kind of killing them off over time.
No, I just did a whole 30-day thing on the Mac, and I set a budget of like $50, and I was easily able to spend that on tons of really well-done applications, some of which have been around for decades.
Oh, I know. I'm saying that with what Apple has been doing in the last 5 or so years, they have made it increasingly difficult to remain an indie developer in the ecosystem.
For some.
But they've made it increasingly easier to move code around, right? Like, I mean, that's what I was thinking, is that depending on what these are written in, they probably already have some kind of tooling available that would just compile it for the new ARM architecture as opposed to the x86 architecture.
If you're writing a modern Mac application of any type, it'll probably make the transition. If you're
imagine Objective-C would have also probably have something like that in mind, wouldn't it?
They have they have a way to like write your code. I don't know exactly how it works, but you build down to bytecode, and then they take it from there when you publish it to the App Store. And
so if you write a Swift application, then what it does is it actually doesn't compile to machine code. It compiles to LLVMIR, a variant of it, and then it is pushed into the Mac App Store that way.
Clever.
So and then the Mac App Store compiles the IR to machine code for all Apple architectures, and they can do that at their whim.
Right. So essentially, what you're going to lose is going to be possibly very old 32-bit architecture type stuff that is no longer being developed or maintained anyway.
Or things that maybe use Open or things that maybe use OpenCL or OpenGL probably won't make the transition. Which I have a few. I even have some encoding things that are OpenGL accelerated, which just suck, but that's the Mac platform.
That's one of the things you can't run through Wine. Will be hardware accelerated stuff.
Like Jill says, like gaming's going to be dead, except for iPad gaming. You'll be able to get all the iPad games you want all day long.
Apple's been really pushing the iPad and iPhone recently, so that's going to give their ARM processors a leg up because all that software that Apple has been pushing for on iPad and iPhone is now going to be runnable almost seamlessly onto your Mac.
Yeah, it already is. It already is.
Playing Hearthstone.
It's pretty much.
Now.
It already is getting there. My kids play this game called Sneaky Sasquatch, and it's one of these Apple Arcade games, and they really love it. And it's a totally wholesome game. And the nice thing about the Apple Arcade system is 0 ads, 0 in-app purchases. So they can just hit tap and they can get it themselves. But if it isn't a prime example of the Apple ecosystem because they can play across any device. iCloud transparently syncs their progress, even to the Apple TV. And just as a whim, I loaded up a MacBook with it, and I just went to the App Store, installed it, and fired it up, and I logged in, and there was all the information synced from the iPad that Dylan had just been playing on 10 seconds ago, and he just resumed playing it right there on the computer. Like it was a super smooth transition. We went from he went from an iPhone to an iPad to the Apple TV to a MacBook, and I was just watching him move around just to see like how far does this go.
Got on this side.
And it's only a few games, I think. I don't think it's very many games.
Write them and leverage that ecosystem.
And they're not games I want to play. Really.
But that's not the point.
But, so here's my thing. This is where I was going with this. I think this is why it'll push more people to a workstation like Linux. Because for me, if I'm going to spend... I mean, I don't know what a decent MacBook Pro is, but I bet you I could pretty close... I bet you mine would be around...
$4,000.
Yeah, mine would be,
right.
because I'd need like 2 terabytes of storage. I'd want to go with more video memory for video rendering. If I'm going to get a Mac, I'm going to use it for video editing. And by the time I'm getting close to $4,000, the fact that thing can't play video games, which is a use case for me on a computer, is a really big deal. And an eGPU isn't good enough on the Mac because unlike Linux, where it's just an environment variable and I can throw any damn application I want on that external GPU because I control my computer, Mac OS decides what goes on the eGPU. And it don't always send the right stuff to the eGPU, including things like Counter-Strike Go, CSGO, and other things you'd love to have on your eGPU that just sits there idle. And it's very frustrating. It's not a good enough implementation to solve that problem.
The IRC's got a great point here. Isn't that why you got Stadia?
You should totally make that a sound clip. It's because I control my computer. That would be great.
That's the difference.
The other thing is, while yes, gaming is pretty translatable, a lot of these like professional apps, or if you're thinking, oh well, there's a version of this audio editor on iPad, so that's just freely moved over. The problem is
they're completely different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the UI is designed for a totally different experience. So when you move that to keyboard and mouse,
but dude, it's all about to get weird.
Sucks.
It's all about to get weird because they have that keyboard with the trackpad, and they've added full pointer support to iOS.
Right.
Yeah, and it's actually getting even more bizarre.
What is going to happen?
It's getting more bizarre on the Mac side because they've been adding features that don't make sense unless you have a touchscreen and making them kind of primary. Like there are now more shortcuts that just trigger the launcher zone that you see in iOS that show up on Mac OS. A lot of the applications have been clearly restructured to benefit from that kind of a UI paradigm.
Well, that's because they're porting over some of the new apps in Catalina are just ported from iOS now.
Right.
Exactly. And the thing is, they're setting up for...
I think the two are going to meet in the middle.
Yeah, the convergence of the Mac line and the iPad line are probably going to be somewhere where we'll have a touchscreen Mac. That's probably where it's going.
Yeah, I think once you take the x86 out of the Mac and you put the ARM on the Mac, you basically, what's a Mac anymore?
Yeah, at what point is it just an iPad Pro with a keyboard attached to it?
Yeah,
right.
And if we go all the way back to 2007, one of the things Steve Jobs said when he launched the iPhone, it just runs Mac OS X.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think go ahead.
Why can't we have something like Kirigami where it just automatically scales?
Because it's hard. It is a really hard thing.
People have
At the same time,
good people have died trying.
It completely
You're no joke.
It will never work.
I think it makes the Mac a risky proposition. So say when they have their virtual WWDC here in a month or two, at the end of June or whatever, and they announce a Mac. The rumor is they're going to announce a MacBook Pro 14-inch with the new keyboard, dedicated GPU, all et cetera, et cetera. That could be the last x86 MacBook they ever make. And is that the time you want to drop $4,000 on a piece of hardware when it's the last in its line? I mean, you would want to guess the last x86 so you could ride it out as long as possible, but at the same time, it's not worth.
Do you want to be on a dead horse?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and as a developer, do you want to develop for something that is clearly going to be gone in 5 years?
Well, I think, again, if you're writing a modern Mac application, I think it'll be just, check a box in Xcode and hit build and you're fine.
As long as you're not building for C or C++ or Objective-C, you do not actually build machine code when you build an app.
But what about people who are making cross-platform stuff, like a lot of the professional stuff is?
They use their own
That's the
stuff,
thing.
and yep.
Then they're screwed. That's all.
Yep, they have to port. Yeah.
And right. And so the question is, do
That's
I
just what
spend,
Apple
you know,
does.
how many millions of dollars porting this stuff over for just this one platform? Or do I just say,
I mean, this
screw
was the
it,
same.
it's all Windows?
This is the same argument. This is the same argument people had when they went from M68K to PowerPC, and then from PowerPC to Intel. I mean, Apple's going to keep doing this, and it'll be fine for them, and the market will shrink every time. But as long as they maintain good margins, it doesn't matter.
I suppose what will really make the difference is if they can make kick-ass systems. Because then if
It doesn't, but it doesn't matter even with that.
Well, it does matter if a bunch of like sysadmins and web devs who have some money to burn want to get a kick-ass computer, so there's an audience for apps, you know.
Yeah, but who are the only
benefit for
people
that?
who can build iOS apps? The only people that can build iOS apps are people that own Macs.
Right. That's the only market that I think they have cornered is the iOS apps, because literally anything else, there's no IDE or environment or anything like that I think of in Mac that it necessarily just has over a Linux or a much, much cheaper, more powerful computer.
In the United States, Apple has like somewhere close to 75 to 80% of the ownership of the mid-range to high-end market of
Right,
phones.
of course they do, yeah.
And because of that, that means that they essentially have a capture, because all of those people have to have Macs to develop for it, because they don't allow people to build for Mac for iOS devices on other platforms. So it doesn't
in a
matter.
way, with this change, that value proposition will get even better. You buy an ARM Mac, it's closer to iOS, so you're building on the very architecture that you'll be deploying for, but now also one box and you're deploying on Macs. So they just increased their target audience size. They've got Electron for the Apple ecosystem now, and they've doubled. You can make an iPad app at the same time you're making a Mac app, and by the way, we've got an app store that'll help you sell it. You can price it easy. You can ship updates to customers. Bada bing, go for it. And
no
in a way,
more
it's easier
unsigned
now.
Third-party apps.
It's
And
easier
no
for
more
right, but it's easier for developers to make an app and sell it to both the iPhone users, the iPad users, and the Mac users. And Apple has APIs for days to do anything you want, and they've got a payment system, they got a distribution model, and as long as you're making a legit app, you can publish it there, and you're going to make money. And in a way, it's going to be an even better story for those types of developers. The types of developers I'm thinking about, the independent developers or the ones that aren't really invested in porting to a different platform, are going to get totally screwed.
And anyone who's smaller than even a company like the one that I work at, with around 1,000, maybe 2,000 employees, and spends 300 or so of those on developers. Even it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to bet the farm on macOS if they screw it up like that. So
Bye, guys.
because it's
See you
too
later,
expensive.
Computer
See you, man.
Yeah, we should wrap it up too. But
one thing
All right, thanks, sir.
ruined for me is the
Bye, Drew.
Hackintosh game.
The what?
The Hackintosh game.
Oh, that's dead,
God.
man.
That's
It's
too dead. That's super dead.
Unless Apple decides to keep an x86 variant around of the Mac line
They
for a
will
while.
keep one
Maybe
for 5
a
years.
little while. Yeah, for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
but-
They'll keep one for 5 years. That was how long they kept the PowerPC variant. Remember?
It'd be great if they would just release Mac OS for x86.
It'd be great if they would just let you develop on not a Mac.
Well, okay.
Yeah, that's never. That they're
Imagine these people who've spent like 10 plus grand on a Mac Pro.
Right.
Didn't Mike Dominic one time say he was using some sort of like a virtualized Mac to push apps for iOS?
There's a hosted solution.
Yeah, you can rent them.
Yeah.
And those are just closets of Mac Minis. That's
Exactly.
all they
Yep.
are.
If I was going to do what he's doing, I'd probably just buy a Mac Mini and put it in the closet. Although I suppose if you only need it for a couple of months, that'd be a great way to go. So that was his solution if he wanted to be on Linux but had to build for Mac OS.
Which is actually probably the solution I'm going to go to for the video game I developed that needs to work on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I will probably buy. I don't like Lenovo laptops, but because they're making Fedora Lenovo laptops, I will probably buy one. I'll probably switch my primary laptop to that, and then I'll probably pick up a Mac Mini for doing Mac specific development because there's no point anymore.
How could you not like Lenovo?
Too bad the Mac Mini isn't just a little more compelling for that price.
The keyboard layout on Lenovo's has annoyed me historically, and they have always been a little bit bad about what hardware they put in there. Like I've had trouble with Wi-Fi and and
I've been
stuff
very
like
happy.
that.
I've been very happy with the keyboard layout and the hardware quality. I've been very happy.
Admittedly, the last time I tried a Lenovo
level.
was 5 years ago.
They went through some transitions around that time for sure.
Yeah.
Has anybody tried the new MacBook Pro keyboard, and is it any
yes,
good?
it's gorgeous, and it is so good feeling.
Really?
It is. Like I went and tried it at the local Best Buy over here because like I was getting ready to pull the trigger on a Dell XPS, and that completely blew my mind how comfortable it was, and it was basically the way I wanted a keyboard to feel.
Damn. I don't want to hear that because I don't want to be tempted.
It totally destroyed me because this is why I don't have a new laptop. Because
if they could just make it easier to run, I know that's ridiculous, but if they could just make,
Right.
you know,
Can I
like
just dual boot my Linux on there.
wouldn't it be fucking amazing if Apple
Am
upstreamed
I out
like
of the
T2
loop or
drivers?
something?
What?
Didn't they just add a membrane to the same butterflies?
No. This is
no. They went
on
back to the scissor.
on the 16-inch. This is now the 16-inch and the new MacBook Air. Only these two models have the new scissor. Well, the old Swizzer sit. They basically took they call it the Magic Keyboard. They took the keyboard they use on the desktop and they just put it in the laptop.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the scissor type.
We know a guy who's really into Linux. You might say you could ask him any question about it, and he prefers the Apple Mac keyboard and even hooks it up to his. When you go to his office, which might be not in Washington, I'll just leave it at that. But if you were to say travel to his office, where sometimes it can be very cold, and you were to walk around his office, you'd be surprised to see that he has Apple keyboards all over the place. But he has them connected to Linux boxes.
So, I mean, they're my second favorite keyboard. Like, my favorite is actually, like, you're going to kind of hate me for this, but my favorite's the Logitech Wave keyboard. It's so comfortable for me. Even though, like, it's not the fastest or most responsive, my hands don't hurt when I'm using it for hours.
Hey, that's what counts.
I have had that same experience with a Microsoft ergonomic keyboard that I really like.
I haven't tried that. I haven't tried that one yet, but because this one's getting a little long in the tooth, I might actually switch to that and see how that goes. I just love those kinds of keyboards, and they make using a keyboard for a long period of time not suck. But like following that, the Mac keyboard is my favorite.
Yeah, the Microsoft keyboard that's ergonomic is like super cheap. It's like $25-$30, and it's pretty nice, even though it's huge.
Mine's wireless, and it's not too big. It's a thinner one. I can't remember what it's called.
I know which one you got. Yeah,
comes with a nice mouse that I don't mind either.
And usually those ergonomic ones are fairly easy to get workplaces to expense, in my experience.
I actually
peripherals are usually pretty good though.
I am now getting I've solved the RSI in my hands and my wrist, and now I'm getting it in my elbows. To the point where, like, on the weekends, if I carry groceries in, or like I was sawing for 5 minutes, sawing some wood, and my elbows hurt now. And I think it's because of how I sit in my chair and I put a lot of weight on them.
I've been getting that as well. That's what I was just about to say. Do you lean on your arms? Because I've noticed that on my elbows after I've been sitting for a while and leaning over to one side. That's when they start.
I can't help it.
I figured it out. It's the same for me as well, and it drives me nuts because I can't stop doing it.
Same.
It's these little things you have in just back of your brain.
I really feel like recently sitting at my desk is just started to hurt a lot, and I think it's just because I gotta change it up. It's just I've been sitting in one spot doing that too long now.
So have you thought about getting a standing desk? Like one of the kind that you can actually move up and down, because I've had those before, and it's not because I don't want to stand all day either. But it's nice because you can literally sit there and kind of pop them up for an hour or so, and then pop it back down. I noticed that made a really big difference.
Yeah, I should probably consider it for the office. We have one here. I'm standing right now in the studio. And so I sometimes will come down here and work at the standing desk. But the way it's not quite high enough, so the way my wrists have to be sort of kinked to use the devices actually ends up hurting them. So I should look into something that would be a little more higher, like one I could just pop on top of the desk.
I recommend, if you're going to use a standing desk, get like a foam pad to stand on. A good one.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. One that you can pop up and down. That way you don't have to be standing the whole time.
Yeah. Hey, I noticed that Debian has started to work on officially supporting the Rock 64 too, which is
cool.
Nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Officially, that's
it's very early, but they're landing all the bits.
Yeah, they're going to be. I think they're like 3 kernel releases behind most of the support in SID. They should be getting it this weekend. So it'll probably become available in Debian testing in like 1 to 2 weeks. So if you fancy the Debian testing, life, you can probably get it fairly soon, within a couple of weeks.
So the answer is 32.
The Debian testing life.
Yeah, no, just it's not a great life, but it is a life.
Better than nothing.
It doesn't sound like a great life, because Debian is supposed to be the slow and the stable, and then testing is supposed to be fast, and I don't feel like those would go well together.
They don't, not typically.
Why.
But they're called Debian testing, and SID is the unstable tree. They're sort of misnomers from back in the early days when Debian actually did move fast when they first started out. Debian structure is that they've got this smooth pipeline from when a Debian developer or Debian maintainer uploads the debs into the archive, and then they propagate through the stages as they pass checks, and that's how that goes from experimental to unstable, which is also known as SID, to testing, to then testing is eventually at some point snapshotted and then branched to create the upcoming stable release. That happens very close to the day that the release happens. So they put a freeze on testing for a very long time, and then when they get close to release, they branch it, and then they sync unstable back into testing to pull it forward.
That seems pretty smooth, and I guess you gotta test somewhere. You can't be stable unless you test at some point.
Well,
as far as I know, Ubuntu takes their packages from SID.
Yes, they do. So nobody said anything about there actually being testing. I just said that that's where the checks happen.
So it's called testing, but it isn't actually testing. It's pretend testing.
No, I didn't say that either. I just said that that's what it's called. The truth of the matter is it's a lot more nuanced than that. So there are collections of packages that are in fact tested before they land there. But the vast majority of the Debian collection, and to be fair, this is true of most distributions, Fedora, OpenSUSE, the vast majority of the collection just kind of goes in as is. There may be a base set of tests that get run to do sanity checks. Fedora and OpenSUSE do a lot of these. Debian does quite a bit less of this. But there's some. They call it testing because they haven't marked it as a release package. That is literally all it means. It actually would be better named as staging, because that's really what it is.
I just have a little anecdote. So I was brewing beers with my friends, and we had a testing line where we had new brewery stuff we wanted to test, and we called it SID.
Nice. That's cute.
Ha ha. Do you know where they got the name SID?
Toy Story.
Well, it was me.
The mean kid who breaks
proposed
all the
name.
toys.
Yeah, he's the evil kid that breaks the toys. And because Debian was founded while 3 of the folks that worked on the project were working at Pixar, and Bruce Perens was one of those, they decided to name the first release after Pixar, after Toy Story toys, because they were working on making Toy Story at the time. And so that's where that started.
Debian has just got a knack for naming. Do you know where Debian actually got its name?
Deborah and Ian Murdoch. So Deborah and Ian.
I know, it's so funny.
Yeah,
But
well,
I once saw. I was in Berlin for the desktop summit. There was a desktop summit for KDE and GNOME users, and there was Ian Murdoch that had a talk to for Solaris at the time. It was
that's right. He was hired for
gorgeous.
Open Indiana.
It was so good. I've hardly seen a talk that good. Although with the visualization, everything, I was just wow. I was really just wow.
I once
You could
accidentally bumped
introduce
into
yourself by saying, "Hi, I'm the Ian in Debian."
Well, he never did that. He was a very nice, humble guy.
Too bad. That would be funny.
Well, he also doesn't live anymore, so there's that.
Yes, it is hammer time.
Oh my God, that was not appropriate. But
Come on, Chris.
Yeah, seriously. Ian Murdoch actually, he lived in Indiana around the same time that I did, and I think I bumped into him once, although I didn't know it then. But I have met the guy a couple of times, and he was a nice person, and very humble, and very cool. And he wasn't actually, and like at one point he founded a company that basically built 2 Linux distros with with a unified tooling infrastructure around it. Like he used Anaconda, Yum, and things like that built, and the distribution could use Debian or RPMs. And he did all kinds of crazy stuff. He helped support making apps work in. He wrote an apt backend for Anaconda a long time ago. All kinds of crazy shit.
Well, all right. I think we've got everything then.
That's what
I kind of feel like Lenovo Loves Linux is our winner just because you know me and alliteration.
Yep. It's either that or the Fedora.
I do not agree with that. I do not. I mean, it's just a common title.
And the answer is 32?
How many loves Linux did you have under your whole life? But the answer is 32. That's a grown-up title for the grown-up podcast.
Oh my God, I love this pitch.
Bring it in.
This is a good pitch. But you know what I'm going to get is...
grown up?
Actually, it's 42, Chris. Actually. I'm going to get a lot of actuallys.
Yeah, you will get
And that's going to be shitty.
I'm the guy that's got to get all the actuallys. But otherwise, I agree. But also,
read the book.
We will see tomorrow.
What if?
Well, take the favorite Fedora. It's also alliterative.
Let me throw this scenario at you. What if a large Linux podcast giving attention like this about Lenovo shipping Fedora laptops were to encourage the executives at Lenovo to double down on this initiative because of the positive impact it appears to be having?
Wow. Okay, go for it.
Man.
Go.
You're just dreaming. and we all know Lenovo loved Linux for decades now. How many years do you use a ThinkPad and
Lenovo
everything?
really loves Linux. They're willing to ship it to normies now.
I feel like Minimac. I feel like you make a good case, but I mean you don't have an answer for that. I'm gonna get all the actuallys.
The thing is, I will wake up tomorrow and I will see a Telegram post, the new LUP is out, and then I will see the title, and then I will see if I love you or not.
Wow!
Woo!
Yeah, you should. Is there any way you can forward all the actuallys over to Minimac?
Even Cheesebake loves my title.
That's a great idea.
Come on, vote for me.
I already voted for Minimac, but I still want to win.
But you also voted for yourself. Come on.
Well, all right. I mean,
I voted for myself.
I feel like I made a good case. Like giving Lenovo a little love could encourage them to make more Fedora products.
You know what I would love to see
I think you're
is eventually
probably right,
have.
Chris.
I would like to see Lenovo have on their order page a drop-down menu to let you select whatever freaking distro you want.
Yeah.
They're never going to
The same with Dell.
I know.
No.
They're never going to do that. Like, the closest that we will probably get is getting Fedora and Dell and Ubuntu in Lenovo, but, like, it's not going to be more than that.
Yeah. I'd like FreeDOS.
Surface is sold with.
They already
we're gonna get
give you
Surfaces
FreeDOS.
sold with Linux.
Does Lenovo do FreeDOS?
Yeah, you can get any you can purchase any and all laptops with FreeDOS.
All right,
Wow.
well, so
And
we got
why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Those DOS games.
this title situation is so stressful. I can't even now.
Just do the alliterative. Pick the favorite Fedora.
The other one you like.
Everybody has a title agenda.
You could do let's
We need
love
some
Lenovo because
innovation,
Lenovo
some-
loves Linux.
We need some creative things, innovation, not just always the same kind of stuff.
You're so good at this, Minimac.
This is pretty good. This is a good argument, I gotta say.
I like that. I mean, I
feel
might
like
even.
Minimac
I
should be a
voted for yours,
politician.
by the way. So that's. Oh
Look.
no, we don't. Well,
You
Minimac
know
might
you
be a
want
decent
the
politician.
alliteration, so do the alliteration that's on top.
I like
Love
how it's
isn't
like
always on time, yeah.
What do you think, Wes? You gotta weigh in, Wes.
Okay, I'm
do
gonna
it.
get on the Tor browser and just constantly refresh and vote for myself.
Damn it.
Don't do that.
that's a great way to handle it.
Don't do that, because then
You'll be
now
voting from the same.
I wouldn't actually.
What do you think, Wes? You got it. What do you like? You're looking at it with your fresh Wes Payne eyes. You see the answer is 32, and you see Lenovo loves Linux. Which are you tapping on? You're about to go down. You're driving, going for a little drive.
think about it. You all of a sudden you see Lenovo loves Linux, and you're
Let
like,
your
They're
inner nerd
going
come
to
out.
listen
I
to
love
your
Lenovo and I love
podcast
Linux.
anyway, but they want to have some little suspicion. They don't know.
I mean, people are thinking about the whole ThinkPad ideal. They probably want to know what the
But
skinny
you
is.
also want to broaden your customer. You want to broaden your podcaster base, and if you give them a cryptic title, nobody's going to know what to do with it.
Come on, they will wonder. It's like a package.
I think people have heard about the ThinkPad story. They want to know what's going on. Plus, we had Matt on the show.
That's my thoughts too. So we've just seen a lot of the audience talking about it and people on Twitter, etc.
But the She-Mullet says the answer is 32 makes me wonder what the question is.
32 has that relation to Fedora, although Lenovo Loves Linux has no really. There's no Fedora in the
That's
title,
true.
You know?
That's true.
Yeah, but 32, I mean, unless you're tuned into Fedora already, 32 doesn't mean anything to you. If I'm just an Ubuntu guy.
That's
like,
true. Oh!
Jeez,
oh,
fight
no!
me.
Oh, no! A body blow from Wes Payne!
You know, I thought Wes might like channel his inner nerd here and go with the answer is 32.
I mean, I like it. It's a great, clever title. I'm glad that we've had it
Wes
in the
Payne
running.
reminding us that not all users are Fedora users. Ladies and gentlemen.
Sadly.
It really depresses me.
The most interesting title selection in a while.
If someone thinks 32,
We've been fighting
then,
about
then
the
inherently
title
they
for
know
like
we're
20
going to talk
minutes
about
now.
Lenovo.
It's great.
Just give up and choose mine.
All right.
It's like you guys are winning $1 million about who gets the
I
title.
know.
I love it.
Wouldn't it be great if
love
there was something? But no, it's almost more fun this way. It's internet points. People keeping score. We should have a scoreboard. That would be amazing.
We should. That would
Yeah, but that means you'd have to make this more sophisticated.
Yeah, we got to.
I don't know if you
We
want
basically just got to rewrite the whole dang thing. All right.
We probably have to do that anyway.
Thank you, Mumble Room. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Mums.
Y'all stay healthy.
Well, if you rewrite it, JBot's not JBot if it doesn't crash several times during the show.
That's true.
Hey,
Yeah.
JBot's old, bro. Don't beat up on JBot.
I've got this. That's what JBot says. I've got this.
That's why we keep it carefully socially distancing.
Hey, don't update Ruby though. But I got this.
No, don't update Ruby. Don't do that.
I yell at clouds.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mumble Room. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for making it. Hope to see you next time.
Yeah, and maybe on Sunday for a Luplug.
Yeah, Sunday.
Yes.
Luplug.
Yes.
Is that a regular thing?
Yeah,
'Cause I kinda
That is now a regular thing.
Regular thing.
Awesome.
Yep.
I suggest that we just join the lobby right now so we can hang home just a little bit
There you
more,
go.
and those in the quiet listening room can join us too if they want.
Perfect.
Cool.
Enjoy,
Good
guys.
idea.
See you later. Bye.
Still love you, Mini Mac.
See ya, bye-bye.
Still love you, Mini Mac. Yes, I'm sorry.
Bye.
All right, Cheesy. You have a good one, buddy.
Hey,
Chat room, you have a good one.
Thanks, IRCs.
Bye, chat room. Thank you for those watching on the stream that are in the chat room. We appreciate you. Hey, what do you say? Let's get out of here with a little I'm a Dude, one of my all-time favorites.
Do it.
All right.
Ooh, you are a dude.
Me? I know who I am.
Who are you?
I'm a dude. All right. Goodbye, streamers. Goodbye, chat room. Thanks for making it. Bye, everybody. Coming up on Self-Hosted 16, we're getting to some network basics and tips for solid Wi-Fi connectivity.
Plus, we make the biggest compromise in the history of the